many people are speaking on this one? There's a lot of letters. They're all speaking? All for or against? Aaron's not on.
I'm on, I can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to be reading the introduction remarks again because we are starting the afternoon session. So good afternoon again. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful webinar, and in person are Larry Clay and Aaron Cheng. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in hybrid, in-person, and virtual format, and some submissions will be presented in person and others by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. You can also watch our meeting live on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who want to participate virtually registered in advance and will be connecting to the hearing using a phone or compatible electronic device and are able to participate via video or audio. Participants will be muted automatically upon entry, and when your item is called, participants will be unmuted one person at a time by the moderator. Please mute your devices until called upon to speak. Those participating by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when their item is called, and during this time your camera will be enabled and you will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will assist us by sharing presentation material received within the written submission deadline, and members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use the share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Those attending in person who wish to receive a copy of the committee's decision on an application must fill out the decision request card, and anyone attending virtually must submit a written request by email to the general email address for the Committee of Adjustment, Toronto and East York District Office. Please include your name, address, and an email address. Committee of Adjustment and TLAB notifications and appeal updates will be sent by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto local appeal body known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired, and when the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly state your name and address, and please confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first with a presentation of the application, and then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have completed their presentation, and when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will be unmuted and will have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. When a presentation is not required, panel members may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Are there any declarations of interest, panel staff, this afternoon? Are there any files to be closed this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. No files for this afternoon to be closed.
What about deferrals?
Through you, Madam Chair, see no deferrals for today.
Okay, thanks. All right, the next item is item number 21, 128 Havelock Street. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Mr. Gladkey, planning consultant, an arborist report prepared by Central Tree Care Limited, tree site plan also prepared by Central Tree Care Limited. We received a presentation from the agent late yesterday in our supplemental agenda. We have email correspondence from transportation. They don't have any concern. Forestry is asking for conditions 1 and 2. Planning is asking for a condition. Local councillor sent in a letter of support. We have a number, I have actually almost 2 pages of submissions on this one. I don't want to go through all the addresses, but we have a number of people wrote in support, 332 Gladstone, as well as the Working Women's Community Center, 458 Gladstone. Several people did not give an address. Other residents on Gladstone, Havelock, and then another entire page full of support people, as well as we received late in our supplemental agenda, the Westside Community Council supports this application, as well as 2 more residents. We have 3 people expressed concerns, 143, 141 Havelock, as well as 126. We also have significant opposition on this one from residents on Havelock, Rushholme, Sylvan Avenue, and we received late more opposition from 248 Havelock and also planning from Allen Ramsey Planning Associates, Inc. We received a planning analysis opinion from residents that he's representing in the vicinity of 128 Havelock. We have a 35 signature petition signed by owners and residents on Dewson Street, Gladstone Avenue, Havelock, Lindsay Avenue, Green Street West, and Sylvan. And then we have another revised 35 signature petition by the same people on the same streets that I just mentioned. In terms of speakers today, I'm showing 10 speakers. I believe 9 of them are in opposition. And then I have 3 agents listed here as speaking. So who's doing the honors here today?
My name is John Gladkey. I'm the planner on the file, and I'll be doing the presentation. I am supported by Daniel Comerfort, who's sitting with me. He's the architect. And the owners are online, the Neighborhood Land Trust. So they're also available to answer questions that I may not be able to handle.
Okay, now, is there anything that was submitted that you want us to put on the screen before you start your presentation?
Yes, the presentation, if you can, and I see that it's up there, which is...
Okay, and then you can just reference it and they can move it.
Sure.
We can't take anything additional today other than what thought you already submitted.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
So we'll start the clock. Go ahead.
Okay, so again, my name is John Gladkey, and I'm the planner on this file. The applicant is the Neighborhood Land Trust. They are a nonprofit owner of land and properties in the city of Toronto. They've assumed ownership of scattered houses that had been owned by Toronto Community Housing, and they are charged with making these houses, developing these houses. The operator, if this is approved, will be the YWCA. The existing building will be retained. It contained 5, they aren't units, they were rooms really, and the residents shared kitchen facilities. This will be replaced in the existing building and an addition at the back with 10 self-contained units, so studios and 1 bedrooms, 3 of which will be accessible units. This is an image of the area. The lots in this area are quite large. I point out that we did a study, a sort of a review of the property data information in this area. A lot of the buildings exceed significantly the depth provisions of the bylaw. So because of the depth of the lot, it's not surprising, many of which are around the area, the depth that we're looking for. The other comment I would make, again, with respect to density, many of the properties are in excess of the density. The density, as you know, is an average attempted at setting an average in the area. It predates, it's sort of immediately post-war. So 0.6 times the area of the lot has been exceeded and is exceeded by many of the buildings in the area. There are apartment buildings in the area. There are as well house farm buildings. Could we go to the next slide, please? So the building is shown at the bottom right-hand corner. It's adjacent to a park on 2 sides, and next to it on the south side is 126 Havelock. The proposal is to retain the house form building at the front and add to the rear of the building. And many of the buildings on the street are similar style house form buildings. Some are also apartment buildings, and there's a significant townhouse development that's around 2 times the area lot. Could we go to the site plan, to the ground floor plan? Sorry. So we can see a little bit better what it is that we're doing.
Can you pull up the ground floor plan?
Ground floor, there it is. Yes, so the variances, the building, the extension will extend along the same line along the north side of the property. So the variance there reflects the existing condition of the building. So that's a side lot line variance. There is no variance requested for the south lot line. The rear of the building, the rear is retained as landscape open space, significant area. There is no variance requested for height. I noticed that a lot of the opposition letters have concerns about height. There's no variance requested for height. And a lot of the opposition letters seem to refer to multiplex buildings. This is not a multiplex. We are not asking for an increase in number of units. 10 units are permitted as in an apartment building. An apartment building is permitted in this zone, in this area. The other variance, it is set back at the front in order to accommodate the switchback accessible ramp to provide access for the 3 units on the ground floor, and to provide with the stair that's then also providing access into the site. Very quickly, Madam Chair, the site meets the intent and purpose of the official plan. It's neighborhood area. Neighborhood is defined or characterized in official plan as stable but not static, and this reflects that. The variances, in my opinion, are minor. They are minor because the impact is minimized. They are also minor because they reflect the existing, to some extent, the existing nature of buildings in the area with increased depth and increased density over the limits in the zoning bylaw. The parking requirements the Transportation Services Department is satisfied with the parking arrangement. They have no concerns. There is no requirement for parking for residents. All of this will be affordable housing, some of which will be rent-geared to income housing. The evidence is that people who live in this housing do not own cars and do not burden the parking issues.
I think they've shut the clock off, but I think you're at like 6 minutes anyway, so I have to ask you to.
I'm just wrapping up. I just wanted to point out that about the parking as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, I know we've got a lot of speakers, but a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to hear, I think, a lot of issues being raised today. But I just want to understand a little bit about the configuration on the ground. It looked like from your first floor plan that accessible access will be through a ramp on the front.
Yes.
But upper floor access will be from a door on the side. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I believe, yes, there's a...
It looked like I saw stairs on the side.
There's stairs at the
there.
front and access through the front.
Where are the stairs?
Oh, they're right at the bottom right-hand corner, do you see?
Oh, gotcha.
Yes. And
But what about the second and third floors?
So you go to the inside, and they are along the side of the building on the south.
Yeah, so it just speaks to the question that I had. There looks like from the image that there's a pathway along the south side of your proposal, that I presume that's how people will get access to.
That's how they get access that way now.
But there's a house right to the south of you.
Yes.
Is there any provision for any kind of screening or privacy for that house relative to the people walking and getting access and to and from those stairs?
I'll turn it over to the architect.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Daniel from LGA Architectural Partners. So the intent is that everyone enters from the main entrance.
That's your principal residence, principal entrance will be from the front?
For all floors, for all 10
Okay.
units, yeah. So the side walkway would just be for exiting the building from that second stair. That'd be a fire exit required by code. They come down to the grade and then exit.
The people are going to use that though, right?
It depends if it's locked or not. It could be discouraged if that was desirable.
Well, I'm just anticipating that, I don't know who lives in the house immediately to the south, but I'm anticipating that might be a concern about people kind of using that walkway a lot. And whether there's a remedium, is there some sort to remediate that?
Yeah, I think that in this case, as I said, the primary entrance is certainly the front door, and we could discuss if there was any kind of other ways, if that was a sticking point or a concern.
Okay. I just raise it as something to think about.
Yeah, and then further on in the design, following hopeful approval, there would be landscape design for this project to make sure that all landscape was sensitively integrated as well. So things like paving, permeable pavers, species, plantings, etc. Potentially gates as well. Access.
Great, thank you.
Aaron, did you have a question before I go to the opposition? Okay, thanks.
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, first speaker we have not been able to realize staff or get a hold of. We've tried a number of times. So do you have Mr. Alonso?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm on.
Hi, can you just state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
Robert Alonso, 127 Havelock Street.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, committee and Madam Chair. My name is Robert Alonso. I live right across the street from the subject development. I want to start off by saying that I am generally in favor of this proposal and was very impressed with the YWCA, the Neighborhood Land Trust, and the architects at the community meeting last week. Having said that, both myself and several other homes in the close vicinity of this project, 23 households to be exact, as noted in the submitted petition, feel very strongly that this development is too big, contains too many units, and lacks parking. Firstly, we believe that the property is better suited to accommodate 4 or 5 units with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, as the same amount of people can be housed in fewer units. I understand from the community meeting that the Neighborhood Land Trust already has family units in their portfolio, and they're looking to expand their 1-bedroom offerings. Frankly, this neighborhood doesn't care about their portfolio. We care about how this 10-unit development will impact our neighborhood. The Neighborhood Land Trust should be looking at what the neighborhood needs, not what their portfolio requires. It would be a shame to exclude families from this proposal given the immediate proximity of Dufferin Grove Park. Furthermore, I think it's presumptuous and unreasonable to expect that none of the 10 future tenants won't have cars. Even if they don't, which is highly unlikely, how will move-ins be facilitated? How will moving out be facilitated? There's not even one parking spot. The only way people will move in and out is to block traffic or to block a bike lane and pedestrians on the sidewalk. This setup, although temporary, will be dangerous and create serious traffic issues. This, of course, is over and above the street parking and visitor parking issues. Lastly, although this is a great project and is obviously needed in this community, given the current housing shortage, I don't think that the city and Neighborhood Land Trust should be allowed to break the city's own zoning codes and bylaws to build it. The variances are not minor in nature, and the approval will set a very bad precedent that will allow large apartment buildings to be built anywhere in our neighborhood. I wonder if the committee would approve these variances if the owner of the subject property was a private developer. I would think probably not. If you approve this project, the next time someone tries to push the city zoning guidelines, it won't matter, as this new precedent will be set and approval will have to be given. I hope you take our considerations and concerns seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions for the speaker? No? Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Do you have the next speaker on the line?
Hello, Elias, you have been unmuted.
Oh, yes, well, I just wanted to say that the nature of the development will be significantly different from
Mr. Borges, sorry, before you continue, Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Oh, yes, my name is Elias Borges, and I live at 90A Dewson Street, just around the corner.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yes, as I was saying, the nature of this development would basically create a property unlike almost any of the other properties in the neighborhood. It's basically going to be an apartment building, and several people are going to be living there. And there's no legislation prohibiting someone from living in assisted housing from having cars or restraining themselves as to where they park. So there just isn't enough parking in the neighborhood. I mean, I have difficulty parking my car on Dewson Street. Oftentimes I have to park around the corner. This is going to be a problem. And again, right beside a playground, it just is not suitable for the neighborhood.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Borges? Okay, sir, thank you very much for your comments. If we can go to the next one.
Hello, Patricia, you have been unmuted.
Patricia Gamma-Pinto, are you there? Patricia?
To you, Madam Chair, we'll try and contact her by phone.
Okay.
Evelyn, you have been unmuted.
So, yeah, if you get her, then let me know. All right, can you go to, I know the next person's not speaking, and Evelyn, I guess, is next.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, my name's Evelyn Shore. I live at 114 Havelock. I'm a couple of doors down from this property. So I want to say that, I do appreciate the presentation last week from the Neighborhood Land Trust and all the parties involved. And, we are happy to see, or I am happy to see that this house will be kind of looked after and provide housing for more people in the future. My concerns are, my serious concerns are around parking, and beyond what other people have said about that, with 3 accessible units, there will be wheel trans coming here often, and nowhere for them, again, to safely park and pick up people. And when this is under construction, where are all the people who are going to be working on this construction going to park if they're not leaving any access open? We've seen this as an issue with a house a couple of doors down, which now they have finally parking on their actual lot for their workers. But we're going to see this again with another house a couple of doors down, which you'll see a proposal for soon. So in our little block of Havelock, where there's 5 of us houses that back onto the park, 3 of them are or will be under construction. So this is a serious parking safety issue for all that time. Next, I do want to strongly suggest that families be allowed to move in here. There are great schools in the neighborhood that my kids have attended. The park is fantastic. It's a jewel in this city. It would really be a shame to only allow single people or couples to live in this house. You can house just as many people by allowing, 4, let's say, 2 or 3 bedroom units. And as far as the size and everything goes, I mean, it is a significant depth. And my worry is that, again, setting precedent. When you talk about apartment buildings in the neighborhood, they're on Dovercourt Street, not on Havelock Street, not backing onto a park, not in the middle of, 100-year-old Edwardian homes, which is what we are. So those are my main concerns about this proposal. I do hope that the architects can make some tweaks. They seem to be very good about thinking about how people can live in spaces, but I would definitely like to see fewer units, more families, and at least a loading area for parking, and at least some sort of guarantee that parking will mostly happen on site during construction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker panel members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Shore. Can I have the next speaker, please?
Hello, Kelsey, you have been unmuted.
Thank you kindly, and thanks for the previous speakers as well. My name is Kelsey Carrier. I live right across the road at 125 Havelock Street, and I've lived there for over 7 years. In a house that has 2 apartments in it and 3 families, so 4 adults and 4 kids altogether. And just want to express how grateful we are to be able to afford to live in a rental unit in this wonderful neighborhood. And we were very familiar with the previous tenants when this house was a Toronto Community Housing dwelling. And, all of the tenants were a delightful and welcome addition to the neighborhood, and we just want to express our support for the Neighborhood Land Trust and the YWCA. We're familiar with their work, and we're very impressed with their approach with their project as presented at the community meeting last week. So I mostly want to respond to a lot of the issues raised in the letters of opposition that came in advance. I know there's been a lot of, in the letters themselves, questions about aesthetics and the style or nature of the neighborhood, and I would just urge the committee to be wary of opposition based on aesthetics. They've done a beautiful job of maintaining the front of the house. In terms of the number of units, we are in very much need of housing in our neighborhood and in such a supportive community as ours. So we don't have an issue with the scale of the proposal as well. And I know that parking is a huge issue in the city in general and in other parts of our neighborhood. I know we have neighbors just north and just south of us that struggle to find parking, but living directly across the road, I can say that we're lucky enough, partially because of the number of people that have driveways and also because of the park across the road, that parking is not a huge issue on our particular block of HAVELOCK. So I would encourage that to be taken into consideration in any studies. And making sure that this project can be accommodated. So generally speaking, I just wanted to share my support and just assure that the concerns around parking are sort of taken within a studied context of this particular block where we're lucky enough to not have it not be a major issue at the moment. Thank you kindly for the time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none. Okay, thanks, Kelsey. Do you have the next speaker?
Hello, Markel. You have been unmuted.
Markal, are you there? Hello? Markal?
Ja, wat stift. Wow. Tony, slush it off the north.
Markal?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, it's Tony Loureiro, Loureiro, 122 Havelock Avenue.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's your last name? Morero? M-O-R?
Loureiro, Loureiro.
Oh, okay. I see you down further on my list. So you're not Markal Wrights.
Yeah.
And you're at 122 Havelock, you said? Okay.
Yes.
Just tell them we are together.
Okay. Is Markal Wrights with you?
Yes.
So you're together. Are both of you speaking or just you?
I'll be speaking myself, yes.
Are you speaking on behalf of Markal also then?
Yes.
Okie doke. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. The Havelock Avenue is mainly a residential street, once a single-family residential street, as well as the neighborhood around. And the project of this magnitude will change the fabric of the neighborhood and will have a tremendous impact. And it is my view that in no way this application meets the criteria under the definition of a minor variance. In fact, it is more a major variance than anything else. So we are strongly opposed to this project, and respectfully to your committee decision, we will ask you to consider reject this application outright. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any questions, panel members? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Did Amanda DeVogel, is she there?
No, Amanda's not there. She did leave the meeting.
Okay, have you tried to reach her again or not?
Yes, I've called her multiple
So we
times.
can't reach her? Okay, so then we're at Alan? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Alan Ramsey. You have been unmuted.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Ramsey. I'm a land use planning consultant retained by a group of residents living in the vicinity of the septic lines. My address is 11058 First Line, Moffat, Ontario. I've submitted a detailed planning brief that provides my professional opinion with respect to the application. It's my opinion that the proposal does not satisfy the requirements of Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. And given that the time constraints, I will highlight what I believe to be the the key issues with respect to the 4 tests under section 45.1. First test is the general intent.
Remaining.
The general intent and purpose of the official plan. And it's my opinion that with respect to the general intent and purpose of the official plan within neighborhoods, the intent is for new development to respect and reinforce the character, the physical character of the neighborhood. And section 4.1.5 of the official plan establishes criteria that ensures that new development fits with the character of the area, and specifically requires new development to be in keeping with the prevailing built form characteristics. And it's based upon my assessment of the situation, the proposal, which calls for a significant increase in FSI and building depth and reductions of setbacks and parking requirements, does not satisfy the requirements of section 4.15 of this official plan. With respect to the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the intent of the zoning regulations for maximum FSI, building depth, and yard encroachments, as well as setbacks, is to ensure that the massing and scale of new development is in keeping with the character of the existing area. And it's my opinion that the proposed increases in FSI building depth in particular will result in a massing and scale that is out of character and not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The 10-unit apartment building will dwarf the adjacent detached and semi-detached homes in the area, and that the increase in FSI in particular will be approximately twice as much as the buildings that you see adjacent and across the street, as well as the addition extending 8 meters beyond the rear wall of the existing home at 126 Havelock. With respect to the parking, it's the intent of the visitor parking requirement and the accessible parking requirement is to ensure that there is adequate parking available. With the introduction of 3 accessible units, it's particularly important that adequate parking be provided for all peoples, including people with mobility, health conditions, and other challenges. And I would conclude that the proposal doesn't retain the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. With respect to the test of being minor, it's my opinion that the proposal will result in incompatible development and will result in undue adverse privacy impacts, particularly for the neighbors to the south. As I said before, the building depth will extend 8 meters beyond the rear wall of the existing home at 126 Havelock, and there are windows on the first, second, and third story that will directly overlook the rear yard area of the neighboring property. Then finally, with respect to the test of being whether the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development of the area, it's my opinion that it's not, that the variance will permit development that is incompatible with the surrounding area, particularly the much smaller detached dwellings located in the area, and further that the proposal does represent an overdevelopment of the site. The increase in FSI will create a massing that is out of character with the prevailing buildings in the surrounding area, as well as I don't believe it's desirable to eliminate accessible parking requirements. So I would conclude that the proposal does not satisfy the 4 tests in section 45.1 of the Planning Act.
Thank you very much. Yep, do you have any questions, Mr. Clay?
I do. I was just wondering, Mr. Ramsey, you mentioned that you're representing a group of residents in the vicinity. Can you let us know how many people you're representing and where they're located?
Sure, I can. So I've been retained by residents at 114 Havelock, 119 Havelock, 121 Havelock, 122 Havelock, 123 Havelock, 126 Havelock, 127 Havelock, 190 Rushholm, and 92 Benson Street.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We have one more speaker. Yep.
Hello, Matthew. You have been unmuted.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Matthew, can't hear you at all.
Not at all?
Nope. I mean, I can hear you, but sounds like you're very, very, very far away. Can you move closer to your mic or?
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Nope.
Nope, not at all?
Slightly.
Maybe better?
Getting there.
How about now?
That's
How about
much
right
better.
now?
Yeah. Okay, I think you got it.
Okay, my name is Matthew Zatai. I live at 141 Havelock Street, and I've actually been a resident at this house for over 45 years. So I've lived with the people who have occupied the affordable housing units on Havelock and Sylvan, and having these people on our street is not really an issue at all. We've lived coherently, and I've actually lived with the people at 137 Havelock when that was a women's shelter back in the 90s. I do support the fact that this unit will be developed for affordable housing, but the issue I have is, again, with the size. I just don't see how doubling the footprint of this house with respect to the depth and the height is minor variance. I mean, it's my opinion that this is a major variance. And I know somebody said that they're not requesting a variance on the height, but this is really a 2.5-story house, not a 3-story house. If you wanted to look at what a 3-story house looks like, just look right across the street at 137 Havelock. That's a 3-story full block house. And this is what we don't want in our neighborhood. And again, I'm just rehashing what's already been said. This does create a precedent for what could be developed on our street. The concern is that if the committee approves this, it'll rubber stamp what's being requested on 118 Havelock, which is the same type of structure, same height, and even bigger. So we don't want 2 of these on our street. And the last thing I want to really address is the poor guy at 126 Havelock. I mean, this individual, I met him at the meeting, is an older gentleman. He's going to have to deal with 1.5 years of construction. He's going to have a property that extends 25 feet into his backyard and 3 stories up. I mean, nobody who lives in this area, who sits in a backyard, wants to be looking at a 3-story, 25-foot unit in their backyard. And this creates a very dangerous precedent for what can be done. I mean, nobody wants to be sitting and looking at this. So what I'm thinking is that, I mean, the architects, like I said, are very creative. They could easily rejig the property and possibly put in basement units, because it doesn't look like there's any basement apartment units. I mean, they can put them so that half the apartment is above the ground and not totally in the ground. And that could accommodate more units or more space for the people without going as far down or as high up. Okay? And that's about it. So thank you for allowing me to present.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions? Okay, do you have any more speakers that came on the line while we were?
No, that was the last speaker.
Okay, is there anybody in the room that is speaking to this application for 128 Havelock? No? Okay. Back to you, sir. You have 5 minutes to address all the concerns raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased that some of the presenters referenced the meeting that was held on the 26th of September. It was held in the rear of this property, and a lot of the neighbors came. And as with this meeting, there was lots of support. There was lots of opposition, and I think that's where it was left after that meeting. And there was continuing dialogue with some people. Just to get to some of the issues, I heard concerns about the number of units and the unit types. That is not at issue here. We're not requesting variances for that. I heard concerns about the height. Again, that is not an issue that we're looking at, and that is not a variance that we're requesting. I heard concerns about parking. The existing building, if you could bring up the image of the existing building, just the front and the first. The existing building has no parking, and it's not possible to provide parking if we're going to keep that existing building, except in the front. And so you see it on the left-hand side there. It is partially obstructed. There's a tree. There's a post. So, you know, we could replace the lawn with I suppose, the parking, but I'm not sure that would satisfy the issue. If you had a wheelchair accessible parking space there, the vehicle would have to back into the street. There are many bicycles, and pedestrians. There's a park. Not an ideal condition. Much better for the loading and unloading to take place on the street, and then for people to use the access in front of the building through the ramps with their accessible. As I said, this is a downtown location, great transit for others, for visitors, for residents. There's a self-selection process that happens with rental buildings. People who need parking will look for units that have parking. And the City of Toronto has recognized this, and that's why they've changed their parking requirements and eliminated parking requirements for many residential buildings, minimal parking requirements. And as I said earlier, transportation services, the body at the city that's responsible for looking at transportation issues, including parking, has no issues with this application. There are apartments in the building and in the area, including the one that was referenced right across the street from the park at 137 Havelock. There are buildings that are at or higher than the density that's proposed here in the area, and there are many buildings with depths of building that are around the depth that's being requested through this variance. So it's not out of character at all, and as I said, the tests around the official plan regarding character and retaining the feel of the neighborhood would be retained. As I said earlier as well in my presentation, the site is bounded by a park on two sides. There is an existing building on the south side, 126 Havelock. The neighbor did come to the meeting and saw the plans. There are some windows that would overlook the backyard, and it's not an unusual condition to have windows on the adjacent to another building on the lot line. One of the windows is a stairwell, so you know that's something that can be addressed. But there, you know, as I said, the impact earlier in my comments, the impact is minimal and that's the test for a minor variance. What is the impact? The impact, in my opinion, is minimal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Panel members, Mr. Clay?
Thanks. Amenity space. So is there internal amenity space, or is this just, is it principally the rear yard, which will be space for the residents?
Yeah, that's correct. So the amenity space would be rear yard. Okay. As per zoning bylaw, no interior amenity space is required for unit counts of this number.
Okay.
And it's immediately adjacent to the park as well.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. But I was wondering, I think part of the reason I was asking that was I noticed that there's an existing, it looks like 5 or 6 foot fence around the rear yard right now. Is your proposal to keep that or replace it with something similar?
It's in poor shape. Parts of it are in poor shape.
Yeah.
So, we want to make sure that it was brought up to a good standard. And at the moment, I think the intention is comparable.
Yeah.
We would replace it with comparable. Yeah. Is there a specific reason for the question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, frankly, that there was something there.
Yes,
That's
there
really
would
what
be
I
a
was
fence.
after. I mean,
Absolutely,
it's one of those places that looks like it's a candidate for a lot of graffiti and such, and that sort of thing. But I wanted to make sure that your plans included either replacing it or fixing it, or at least having something like that there.
Absolutely.
Okay. And last is, you mentioned, Mr. Glad, the issue about overlook to the guy to the south. So there are windows there on the addition?
Yes, there are. We can show the site plan again, maybe the elevation if that's available. Maybe the elevation might be best. Oh, well, you can see it there. So there's one window where the stairs are, so that's the stairwell, there's a window to the stairwell. And there are two windows further towards the west along that wall.
Right, and that's that last corner unit there, right?
That's right, yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And again, I'm not presupposing what we're going to decide, but I don't want, I think these are small units, and I think if you close off light from those units, you're doing a disservice, I think, to the folks that actually live in there.
Yes.
But maybe for the washroom, for example, I mean, maybe that could be glazed, if it isn't already. And maybe the hallway could be.
The stairwell could certainly be.
Or the stairway, pardon me. Just to kind of minimize the impact on the southerly neighbor.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or is that doable? What do you guys think?
We want to be cognizant of any kind of overlook and impacts to the neighbor. I think we only have one washroom on that south elevation. So frosting it is one thing. Two of the units above are bedrooms.
Right.
So in order for these not to be studio units or bachelor units, that sleeping area has to have a window.
Of course.
Which is why one was provided. So in this case, it's preferable that it be clear.
Yeah.
But if it was, decision was pending upon this, we could discuss frosting.
Again, I'm loath personally, I'm loath to go there just because I think, again, they're small units to begin with. And if you start, I think, messing with light, and that's a southerly exposure, I think it has a detrimental impact on whoever's living there, personally. Okay.
Mr. Chang, do you have any questions? Can't hear you. Can you hear me? Aaron?
Oh, no.
Yes, can you hear me? I think he can hear me.
Can hear you, but he can't.
Hello here, Aaron. Can you please do a sound check? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank
Now I
you.
can hear you. Sorry, did you have any questions at all?
I was just trying to see if that windows can be resolved, but tentatively, I think the numbers, are we in committee or just questions?
Still questions, I think.
Questions, I don't have any questions to the applicant.
Okay. Mr. Clay, do you have any other questions? If
Nope.
not,
I'm good.
okay, let's take it into committee then.
We want Aaron to go.
It doesn't matter to me who talks first.
I'm
Yeah,
happy.
I can start first. Yeah. I think, sorry. Yeah. I think the numbers might look a bit oversized, but when you look at the site context, which is pretty lucky, they're right at the corner, kind of isolated and tucked at the corner of the park. And I think the elevations and the massing also makes sense to me. So I don't think it is overbuilt. Parking is always an issue, but that's something I don't think we have any objection from the transportation department. And so I think this is something supportable. I was trying to see if we enforce or attach a window frosting condition, how would that impact on the second and third floor? That might be a problem because the building code requires some sort of windows for bedrooms. That's something I'm thinking about.
Okay.
I'll just say I'm struggling with this one because I think it's a great cause, but it's a big addition, and I get there's a park on one side and behind it, but there's a resident on the other side, and I'm not sure in the normal context of a neighborhood if this was somebody's addition, if that would be supportable. So I'm struggling with this one. I really am. I think the cause is fabulous. I mean, if I were living beside it, I don't think I would be very happy.
Well, for my part, first of all, let me, on behalf of all of us, thank everyone for calling in and everyone writing in. I don't think I've seen an application that has generated such a volume of correspondence, right? I mean, it's almost 100 letters that have come in on this one. So clearly it's got people's attention. I look at this in two sense. First of all, the variance is before us. They're all minor. The only one that is of a significant nature, frankly, is the building length or depth. And it does kind of go back quite far. But having said that, I look at this in the broader context of, the need for social housing, the need for affordable housing, the need for accessible housing. And I note that a lot of the opposition letters, are very passionate about their concern, but they all start out with, while I'm supportive of affordable housing, but not here. And then my question becomes, if not here, where? This, to my mind, is a really good location for this kind of development. It is adjacent to a park, which isn't in of itself necessarily the only reason why it's a good location, but it's also walkable to Bloor, it's walkable to retail, it's walkable to a new mall, schools. I mean, it has all the amenities that people that need this kind of housing need access to. And I think so. It's transit supportive, it's close to the subway, it's close to the Dufferin line. Your point about cars and traffic, a lot of the people I suspect would like to live here because it is so close to public transit and is so accessible to getting around and getting to the things that everybody needs in their life by walking or biking. So in my mind, it is an ideal location. I get that people are concerned about the introduction of this kind of density into an existing neighborhood. But in my view, this neighborhood is one of the ones that actually can accommodate that additional density by virtue of its proximity to all those things. And we talked about amenity space in the backyard. Well, the amenity space, quite frankly, is the park, right? That's where people are going to recreate, and that's quite logical to me. So I see this as being a proposal that, while I appreciate the neighbors' concerns and I understand them, I think the broader public good of serving this segment of society in this kind of a facility, in this kind of a location, supersedes those concerns. So I'm really quite supportive of this application for all those reasons. And in my mind, while it is a large addition off the back, and that's the only, it's not a height, you don't have a height thing. The setbacks are all there. I see that as being the only concern, and in my view, is for all the reasons I've cited, I think this is a supportable application. So I think it's a great proposal. So to kick it off, I'll see what happens. I will, for those reasons, I'm happy to move approval of this application. There are planning conditions and forestry condition number 1 and 2.
Okay. Mr. Chang, are you seconding? Okay, so a motion to approve the application moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Chang. All in favor? I'm going to dissent because I can't support the depth variance. Okay, so the application has been approved. Okay, item number, hang on a second here. Oh boy. Can't close this because there isn't one. Okay. Item number 22, 351, 373 Queen Street East, 880 to 94 Power Street, and 161 to 167 Parliament Street. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 18 photographs of trees on the property, a covering letter from Katie Hickey, presentation materials from the agent, as well as a site-specific bylaw affecting the subject property. We have email correspondence from Metrolinx on this one, and no concerns there. Planning is asking for a condition that came in the supplemental report late yesterday, and we, I guess that's everything here. No, transportation also sent in something. Let me just double check here. No, is there transportation? Is there transportation on this? I'm sorry, I'm
They have
looking.
planning conditions.
Yeah, so do I, but I'm looking at my sheet and I don't see transportation on anywhere. Sabrina, am I missing something? Oh, okay.
Metrolinx.
Well, that's not Metrolinx.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is
But
a
we don't have that, then.
transportation email with no objections.
Okay. Do we have that? Sorry, I'm just searching here. I don't see it.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's on the screen.
Okay. Okay, but we didn't, it's not in our package because I can't
It's in the
find it.
supplementary.
Is
Chair.
it? I
That's
can't
correct.
find- I'm scrolling, I can't.
September 28th.
But it's on the screen.
Okay, great. Okay. And I don't show any opposition speakers on that. Do we have the agent on the line?
Hi there. This is Matthew Helfand, counsel for the agent. Are you able to hear me?
I can. Is Stefan Savelli, are you speaking on behalf of both of you?
Stefan Zavelli is the principal of the owner of the property, and I'm speaking on behalf of Stefan. I'm the only one registered on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. I'm not sure we need a full presentation. Panel members, do you need a full presentation? Do you have questions?
Chair, just a quick, so this is the conversion of some previously approved commercial space into res space?
Yes, sure. In essence, the big move here is the conversion of a double height commercial space into residential space. This image on the screen, if you want to scroll down one, you can get a sense of how this is working. This isn't the full wholesale removal of commercial space from this development. There still will be commercial at grade, but there is a double height commercial space that you can see on the left, which was the approved development. And that double height commercial space is being brought down, so it's a little bit less high, and that is being redeployed as residential space. And also, as a result, there's a redeployment of some of the amenity space And unrelated to what I've just described is also the removal of a level of parking to account for changes in the bylaw. So those are the big buckets of the changes that you have before you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, provide your presentation, or discuss the conditions to the extent that you want to hear about them.
Yeah, just quick. So how many additional units, and what's the mix in the additional units?
Well, so the mix of the units is still going to be ultimately determined. The location will be determined through the site plan process. The mix is actually not changing. So the site-specific bylaw itself secures a minimum number of 2-bedroom and a minimum number of 3-bedroom, and that's not being proposed to change. So in terms of the absolute number of units, I could pull that up for you, but to the extent that you may be concerned about the allocation, it's the same allocation that was approved in terms of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 1-bedroom units.
Yeah, it's helpful for the committee to know how many additional units we will all benefit from as a result of the reduction in other space.
Certainly. So the total number of residential floor area is going up to approximately, as it says on the variance, it's going up to approximately 37,000 total GFA, and then to residential uses, we're going up to 37,150. The total number of units, if you just give me one moment, of the additional number of dwelling units, I believe that we're looking at approximately 55 additional units. But again, because we're still going through the site plan process, that's not a finalized number. But when we went through the settlement process with the City of Toronto, again, looking at the same allocation of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom units in accordance with the city's growing up guidelines, and we will be seeing a significant increase in the number of units as a result of these variances.
That's fine. I just want to get a sense of order of magnitude. The reason, I presume, is we're seeing quite a number of these kinds of conversions, and I guess it's related to changes in the economy and office space, commercial space, and some of those dynamics.
That's exactly right, sir. I mean, this settlement was approved about 3 years ago, and things have changed very significantly since then. We're still proud to be providing some important retail space at grade, but what was secured here, this double high commercial space, is just not something that works anymore. And we think that getting new units on board is going to be the biggest priority here, and that's why we think that this variance is a good idea, meets the 4 tests, and planning staff have approved as well, and a significant amount of work has gone into it with them.
Aaron, you have a question?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I have a question about item number 6. I'm just curious that why the ratio has dropped. Is it because you have increased the number of residential area without increasing the amenity space, or you actually reduce the amenity space at the same time?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So if you could go into the presentation once more, and you can go down to the final page. The change that you're seeing is a reduction in the overall amenity space, an increase in the amount of indoor amenity space. So we're going up from 1.5 meters of indoor amenity space to 2 meters. And because of the increase in units, there's going to be slightly less amenity space overall in terms of ratio. So you're right about that. But also we are seeing a slight redeployment of outdoor amenity space into indoor and into units. And part of the reason as well is this property, the development does include an on-site parkland dedication right at the corner of Queen and Power. And so part of the justification behind the reduced outdoor amenity space, which some of it would be well above grade, and to some extent, that's not necessarily as desirable as the at-grade park that's going to be put into this development. And so for that reason, we thought an increase in the indoor amenity space would be a very good idea, and any sort of negative impact as a result of the outdoor amenity space being lowered would be offset by the on-site parkland dedication.
Okay, that's very fair. Thank you.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, Mr. Helfand. Anything you want to add that's not in the materials that you feel we should know before we make a decision?
No, I just actually have one question, Madam Chair. You did mention a planning report that came in yesterday in the conditions, and I want to make sure I have the same ones in front of me because the planning report that I saw was not dated yesterday, but it was dated
September 27th.
It was dated September 27th.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, perfect. So those conditions our client is totally on board with. Same with the conditions with respect to transportation. Those will be dealt with through site plan. This condition with respect to the community cash contribution is in line with the Section 7 cash contribution that our client previously made and will likely be secured through an agreement with the city. And we are okay with these conditions.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel members, let's take it into committee for a decision. Aaron, you want to take this one?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. I think it is a very supportive concept that you are, like Larry said, the economy has changed, so more residential units might be more appropriate, and all the details seems to be reasonable as well. So I would like to move the motion to be approved, subject to the condition of the staff report and the transportation report.
Okay, so motion to approve the application, including the transportation report and the planning report, moved by Mr. Chang, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 23, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent, as well as presentation materials. We have email correspondence from transportation. They don't have any concerns. 14 form letters in support, and that includes 237, which is adjacent. I don't show any opposition speakers. Do we have the agent on the line?
Hello, Jonathan Hatch, speaking on behalf of 235 Niagara Street. My address is 6 Bishop Street, Toronto, Ontario, M5R 1 and 2.
Okay, thanks. Panel members, we have 2 variances before us. Do you have any questions for Mr. Hatch? No? All righty. Looks like there are no questions for you. We've read the material. Anything that you want to add before we go into committee?
I think it's a pretty straightforward application. It's a third floor addition on top of the existing footprint, well within the development standards that are happening throughout the neighborhood. I'm happy to go through the presentation, but it seems as though you guys are probably a little behind anyhow.
Okay. Well, we have read all the materials, so we've read the covering letter and the presentation materials, so we've gone through it all. All right, so we'll take it into committee then. Panel members, do you have a motion or comments or both? Mr. Clay.
Sure, thanks, Chair. I agree with the agent. I think this is a very straightforward. It's only 2 quite minor variances on, and this is an application in a growing and very rapidly changing area. I do note that it's right adjacent to a commercial building too, so I don't think there are any major impacts of this proposal on the adjacent neighbors. I think it's also benefits from what appears to be a great deal of support from surrounding neighbors. So I think it's a supportable application. I'm happy to move approval. I don't believe there are any conditions.
Okay, are you seconding, Mr. Chang?
Yes, I'm just wondering about the privacy screen usually apply on.
Okay, I didn't catch that, but if you think it needs privacy screening?
It's shown on south elevation drawings. Like correctly. Yeah, it is.
Oh, is that a?
The intent is to build a rear third-story balcony on the first page, and if you scroll down to the page showing the elevation, which will be exactly right, the one on the screen. So they have a rail link, but we can suggest to add
Yeah,
privacy
I'm agnostic.
screen
If you wanted it, let's put it in.
Yeah, do you want that as a condition
On the side?
on the sides?
Yes, on the side, I think, which is on the east and west, right?
East and west? Okay.
Okay, so screening on the rear balcony, east and west sides. Okay, so with that condition then, so the motion's then moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Cheng, to approve the application with a condition for screening on the rear balcony on the east and west sides. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. Item number 24, 45 Wright Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 3 photographs of trees on the property, comparables prepared by K.H. Davis Engineering Consultants, email correspondence from third-party projects review, Metrolinx, and again, it's an advisory report. And I don't show any opposition speakers. We have, again, 2 variances before us. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi. This is Nilüfer Soltani from K.H. Davis Engineering. I'm the agent and designer for the owners.
Hi, I don't think we need a presentation. Panel members, any questions?
This one does have a roof deck, and I'm just calling it up on the plans.
I imagine you're looking for screening?
Oh, it's a big roof deck. The proposed roof deck on the 3rd floor, it looks like you've got something up there, but we may want to put a condition for privacy screening on both sides. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I spoke to the owner and they have no problem with that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? Okay, not seeing any other questions. Is there anything that you would like to add before we go into committee to make a decision on this?
No.
Okay, we're in committee, panel members.
I think it's Aaron's turn.
Oh, Aaron's your turn.
Okay, yeah, I will, yes. Yes, let's approve this application with the condition of having privacy screen on the east and west side at 1.5 meters height. And
It's on the roof deck, right?
on the roof deck, right, correct.
Okay, yeah, there's no other condition. Metrolinx is advisory only, so.
It's advisory, yes, that's it.
Okay, so that motion then to approve the application with a condition for 1.5 meter screening east and west side of the 3rd floor roof deck, moved by Mr. Cheng, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 25, 358 Queen Street East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter prepared by the agent. We have email correspondence from Heritage. They don't have any concerns. Metrolinx also doesn't have any concerns. We have a form letter in support received in the supplemental agenda from 362 Queen Street East. We have correspondence in opposition from 358 Queen Street East. I'm showing 1 opposition speaker on this one. And do we have the agent on the line? And do we have the opposition? Yeah?
Yes, we have the opposition.
Okay, thanks.
And Christopher, you have been unmuted.
Yes. Yes, hello. Christopher Walker, 87 Brickworks Lane.
Hi, can you do a presentation, please? No more than 5 minutes. We have 1 opposition speaker.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Christopher Walker, and I'm the architect and agent for the owner Eggplant, a leading post-production studio of 50 employees that contracts hundreds of voice talent, musicians, and actors. In April, after 20 years, Eggplant was evicted from their building at 236 King Street East to make room for a 500-unit condominium. The next month, on May 1st, after 25 years, Eggplant was also evicted from 260 Queen Street East to make room for 850 residential rental units. In total, Eggplant lost 21,800 square feet of production facilities, and the city gained 1,350 new residential units. The negotiation to purchase 358 Queen Street East was based on acquiring a vacant building. However, that did not end up happening. Eggplant moved forward with the purchase based on their great need for space. The proposal before you requires the change of use of 3 residential units to commercial. One tenant, Emily and Logan, have objected. The second tenant has remained neutral, and the third tenant has accepted a buyout package. The owner of Eggplant, Dave Conlon, has been in communication with Emily. He is sympathetic to her situation and has agreed to negotiate a relocation plan. In conclusion, we understand the need for housing in the city. We have also experienced a need for commercial space. The relocation of Eggplant does require the removal of 3 units, but the relocation has also made way for 1,350 new units in the neighborhood. The application has 6 recent Committee of Adjustment precedents in the neighborhood where the variance being sought has been granted, 5 of which exceed our request. We ask the committee to support Eggplant's relocation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to you after we hear from the opposition. Okay.
My name is Emily Renault. Can you hear me?
I can, and I just need your address for the record.
Yes, I live at 358 Queen Street East in Unit 1.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I would just like to clarify that there are 3 remaining tenants, all in support, all in opposition of the conversion, and the other tenants who lived in the unit in the back facing the alley did accept the buyout. So just to confirm that there was no neutral tenant, all remaining tenants are in opposition. So thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. I'm here today to oppose the conversion of the 2nd and 3rd floors of 358 Queen Street East from residential to commercial. So to update the committee, and in fairness, the owner has reached out to me this morning to confirm he will work with the tenants on a relocation plan. So that did address some of the concerns I brought up in my letter. However, I still stand that it is against the interests of the community and the city to approve projects that remove rental units from the market. I understand that there will be new developments in the community and new residential units in the community. However, these are not rent controlled, and these are way above what I am currently paying and will force me to be paying upwards of $1,000 more in rent just to get the same amount of space I have now. And I'm open to downgrading, but even to downgrade to a studio is more than what I'm currently paying. Room rentals are going for higher than what I'm paying in my rent, and I've only been here for 2 years. So please consider that, a relocation plan is not going to be sufficient unless it is extremely high to make up for the fact that there is a scarcity of rent-controlled and affordable units, and the extreme increases of rent that has been happening in Toronto. CBC and Rentals.ca have reported that they have gone up by $100 a month since the spring. So the opposition to, approve commercial to residential, residential to commercial conversion, as well as removing residential units from the market, is something that is reflected in the City of Toronto official plan. Tenants are facing extremely high rents and very low rental vacancies. Even with a relocation plan, I'm going to be put in a really tough spot. I might have to leave the city. And I know that Dave, the owner, has acknowledged this. However, I'm still in opposition. I do not think it is in the best interest of the city to approve any projects that are not necessary and that remove rental units from the market. I'm sympathetic of the owner's position. However, commercial space should not take precedence over residential space in the city currently. Thank you everyone for listening to me today. I will just note, as I have 2 minutes left, that considering that the back unit is vacant because the owners have arranged a settlement for those tenants, I am not specifically opposing the conversion of that back unit, the unit in the unit number 3 facing the alleyway. I'm not opposing that to be converted to commercial space, as again, it is vacant, and I'm trying to be reasonable here. So thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if panel members have any questions. I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much for your input. Mr. Walker, can you speak to the issue that was raised by Emily?
Yes, it appears that we're both victims of eviction. I'm not sure how we weigh the eviction of a commercial tenant against the eviction of a residential tenant. There's a lot of concentration on the need for residential and concern about the loss of residential. But we have to understand that our client has been in this neighborhood for 25 years, employing 50 people, and has lost over 21,000 square feet of commercial. We just heard on item 22 today that we're losing commercial across the street in favor of residential. We understand the need for residential, but in the 2 buildings that our client's been evicted from, plus the one approved just minutes ago, we have almost 2,000 new residential units in the neighborhood, on the block. I heard earlier in the morning that you were not going to be considering changes to applications. So Emily has proposed that the 3rd unit at the back could remain converted to commercial. I don't know if that's something that you guys are prepared to consider at this point.
I don't think so. Perhaps, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, you can weigh in on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, that would have to be reviewed by the zoning to determine, because now the residential use is being converted into commercial use. And that wasn't part of the notification that also went out.
Yeah, we would need clarification from zoning.
So hypothetically, if we approve this, could the owner still provide residential there? Like, is it a hard and fast rule that commercial has to be used in the rear, or could that be used as res, even if because it's a mixed use building, right?
Right. So if there's no variances associated with that, then sure. And then that would just reduce their non-residential gross floor area variance, which would improve the variances that are before you today.
So, Chair, we could approve it as stand, and then they could, on their own, negotiate with the tenant to have that rear section made res.
But did you not just say that he would have to recalculate the variances before us, or not?
Well, no. I mean, the variances are at the extreme of all commercial, right? So if they were to convert a portion of the rear into residential, then those variances would be improved, right? Because what's before you is the non-residential gross floor area.
Yeah, okay, I follow you. Okay.
But I don't think it's something that we can do today, because that's not what was circulated and on the ASC at the time of notification.
Okay,
Right.
So, Mr. Walker, that's something I guess you'd have to
So, I mean,
look into.
I just want to say that it's more beneficial for the applicant to take it as is, because you have the freedom not to use up all the commercial space once we approve it. There's no need for us to come back with a different number to set your limit, and then another week later you realize that you need more commercial and you're back to this stage. right? So what we're doing here now is giving you the flexibility to change. It's very simple, C1L 2.5, right? We're basically allowing you to do less C.
Yeah.
Right?
They can,
Okay.
he can, if we prove it as submitted, then they can negotiate something themselves.
Okay. Any other questions for the agent? Okay, let's take it into committee then. Whose turn is it? Larry?
Based on our conversation and discussion, I think if we approve this, then the applicant can work with the tenant and see if there can be an accommodation down the road. And us approving this wouldn't prevent that. And as Aaron points out, approving it gives the applicant a ton of flexibility. So I will, on that basis, move approval of this application with no conditions.
Okay, are you seconding, Mr. Cheng? All right, all in favor to approve the application, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Cheng. That carries unanimously. Item number 26, 139 Borden Street. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. One photograph of trees on the property, and I don't show any opposition speakers. We have one variance before us. Do you have the agent on the line?
Good afternoon. This is Rawi from Professional Floor Plans. I'm the designer and the agent on behalf of the owner.
Okay, panel members, any questions for the agent? No? Okay, sir, I'm not seeing any hands go up for questions, so is there anything you'd like to add that's not in the materials before us?
No, it's a straightforward one. I don't think there's any issues.
All right, we're in committee, panel members, and Mr. Cheng, your turn.
Right, so I think it is very minor and reasonable. There's no loss of rear yard landscape as well, no height variance, which is pretty good. So I would like to approve this application. I don't see any.
All right, so there's no conditions. Motion to approve the application, moved by Mr. Cheng, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, item number 27, A, B, and C. 9 RELMAR Road, 9A RELMAR Road, and 9B RELMAR Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Draft our plan of survey. We have 5 photographs of trees on the property, a covering letter from the agent, presentation materials from the planner. We have email correspondence from planning. They don't have any concerns. Forestry is asking for conditions 1 and 2 on 9A, and condition number 1 on 9B. Engineering has conditions. We have correspondence in opposition from 13 and 11, and we have materials received from number 7 RELMAR that are outlining their opposition to the application. I am showing 2 speakers. Let me make sure there aren't any more. Yeah, I'm showing 2 opposition speakers, 1 in support. Do we have all the speakers online?
Yes, we have all the speakers online.
All 3? Okay. Okay. You're here. Okay. Can you just, what's your name? Okay, I have you here. Okay. All right. Do we have the agent on the line?
Yes, Madam Chair. My name is Kay Rook, planner for the owners of the property at 9 RELMAR Road.
Okay. I show Christina Kostadinovic listed as an agent. Is that correct, or you're speaking?
She was the architect. I'm the planner. I would be speaking on the owner's behalf, and I actually did register as the owner's representative.
Okay. well, I've corrected my sheet here. So, okay, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead. Before you start, anything you need on the screen?
I did provide presentation materials. If that could be placed on the screen, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you. The application before you today is to sever the existing property into two to facilitate the construction of a 3-story semi-detached dwelling. The subject property currently is a single detached dwelling that has 4 rental units that is occupied today. The variances before you, or the severance before you, is to create two semi-detached. And what you see on the first map are lot frontages in the area. And keep in mind, this area is a very eclectic neighborhood with various lot frontages, various dwelling types in terms of single detached homes, semi-detached homes, walk-up apartments, and even apartments as well. And what you find in the green highlighted properties are those properties that have lot frontages less than 7.5 meters, and even close to what we're proposing at 6.25 and 6.55 meters in terms of lot frontage. The reason why there's a difference in lot frontage numbers between of the two properties that we're proposing is because there's a right-of-way on the on the south side of the property between 9 and 7. And as a result of that, that creates a bit of a larger lot frontage. However, keeping in mind that semi-detached dwellings do exist on the immediate block on the same side of the street. And if you go down in the pictures on the following slides, on slide number 5, you'll see that 19A, 19B Relmar Road, 17A, 17B Relmar, 13 and 15 Relmar, 5 and 7 Relmar Road are semi-detached homes that are already existing in the neighborhood. So by no means is this a added character proposal. In terms of the variances itself, there's variances related to FSI, building depth, area of the coverage of the ancillary building, which is the garages at the rear, south landscaping, the side yard setback between the 2 garages, and lot frontage and the front balconies. So if you go to the next slide, you see the site plan. What's highlighted in the dotted line in red, where the main building is, that is existing dwelling that exists on site. And the proposal is the shaded box that's underneath. And what you'll notice is that in terms of a massing perspective, they're very similar, if not almost exactly the same. The existing dwelling might be slightly longer in terms of building depth. And when we speak to building depth, that green line or that green shaded area represents the area that is in excess of the building depth mark at 17 meters. But what you notice is that the existing dwelling itself is actually set back further beyond that rear wall of the proposed dwelling. So this was a conscious decision by the part of the client in the sense that we wanted to maintain a rear wall that was more consistent with the adjacent neighbors on either side. And what you see is that the existing dwelling extended beyond the rear walls of the adjacent dwellings, whereas the proposal is more consistent. There is a variance related to the front yard in terms of second story and third story balconies. And the only reason that this is coming about is because the proposed canopy, the canopy over the existing porch at the front, which is on the right side of the dwelling, is basically there's a canopy on top of that porch, and it's probably more clearly seen on the next slide on the elevation. So there is an access onto that porch, onto the porch's roof, where there is the canopy. There is the reference to a third-story canopy, balcony, but that in itself, which you see in the dormers on the third, if you could go to the third slide, the dormer is actually set into the roof line, so it doesn't encroach into the front yard setback at all. So I'm not quite sure why that was put in there, but out of an abundance of caution, we'll maintain that. But to be clear, the third-story terrace or the is not within the front yard setback. However, the second-story terrace is, and it's just because we're utilizing the roof line of the porch, the covered porch. With regards to the garage itself that's being proposed at the rear, you'll note that there is if you go back to the site plan, the second slide, you'll note that there is an existing garage that exists at the rear of the property. There is variances related to the coverage and also the setback of the garage. And the setback variance is somewhat technical because it's related to the fact that this is going to be built as one in shot, and they will be utilizing a common wall. So that 0 meter setback is related to the newly created lot line if this application is approved on the north and south side for 9A and 9B respectively.
Sorry, but you're coming up to 5.5 minutes. Can you wrap up,
Sure.
please?
I will close. So in terms of comments and from various departments, you'll note that there was no concerns from any of the departments. We have been in discussions with planning. They have no issues. And the standard approval conditions of urban forestry and engineering are acceptable to us. If there's any further questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Mr. Clay has a question.
Thanks. Just going back to your depth calculation. So you have a covered porch in the rear, but that's not included in your depth variance?
Correct, sir, because it's not excavated underneath.
Right, but it does kind of present like a main floor extension.
No, if you go to the elevation, side elevation, so on the left side is the rear deck, and that's the covered deck, pardon me, on the left side. So it would just be the posts and what's on top. So it would be, pardon me, just bear with me here. Yeah, so it would just be the posts and it would just be the cover. That's all it is. So it wouldn't be part of the building that is extending beyond that point, beyond the rear wall that's shown on the plans.
Right. I guess mostly what I'm getting at is you're pretty light on rear yard landscaping and in parts because of the porch and I guess, or the rear deck and covered porch and your proposed garage.
Yes. And sorry, sir, if just to elaborate on that point, I hear what you're saying. And if you go to the last slide of the presentation materials, you'll see an aerial photo. And what you see on the same block of RELMAR Road, because this area is very tightly knit and parking, on-street parking, and the parking situation is a bit of a concern, there is a rear laneway that people utilize, whether it be with a garage or a carport, or whether they just park directly into the backyards. It's paved. And so we're trying to maximize the greenscape or landscaping as much as possible while satisfying the needs of the potential owners of the property, all the while trying to ensure that we're not being too aggressive or too intrusive in terms of eliminating all the landscaping in the area.
I know we're going to hear from others, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I noticed that in that photo, that air photo, the dwelling to the right looks like it has green roofs on the roof of the main dwelling and the garage. Are you planning a green roof on your garage?
That's something that we could definitely look into. There was no plans of it as of right now, but something we could consider.
Is it a flat roof garage?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll have you back after we hear from the opposition. Danielle, do you want to come up? Yeah. Danielle, are you speaking on behalf of Stéphane Vermeulen, Arsel? Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, is the mics on?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so we just need your name and address, and then you have 5 minutes.
I am Danielle Van Hove, and together with my husband, Stefan Vermeulen, we our home is 7 RELMAR Road, neighbors to the south. of 9 RELMAR Road. Madam Chair and speakers of the committee, thank you for a brief moment of your time. First of all, I would like to say that we moved to Canada in 2016. We bought the house. I became Canadian citizen a few weeks ago. I'm very proud of that, and we're planning to stay. We enjoy our neighborhood. We love living there, and I do appreciate the idea that there will be new construction, and I look forward to meeting the new residents in our neighborhood where we love to reside. I have no qualms with the proposed height of the building. We ourselves are a 2.5-story home. They're suggesting a 3-story home. I understand that. We just have some serious considerations about the floor plan, the depth of the building, and the width. So like the gentleman said, we share a laneway. My husband's car parks in the carport at the end of the shared laneway. We cannot do a 3-point turn because there is a fence. There's not enough room to do a 3-point turn, so we always have to back out. And we literally have only a couple of inches on either side, literally. There's no extra room. So even 1 inch of coming out more would make it almost impossible. And because we have to back out at an angle, if there would be a porch in the back, we would have less space to make that angle to back up in the middle of the laneway. Also, if the garage is being built, they're planning to use coming in from Bilton Lane. Bilton Lane is about a yard higher than the actual laneway. So the building has to come up, which means there are going to have to be stairs to come out of your garage into your back patio and then into the home. These stairs would stick out more as well, making, again, the turn for our car to back out of the laneway literally impossible. Now, I did enclose some pictures. I apologize. These are just my personal pictures. I'm a bit like a fish out of water right now. I did get the paperwork from a neighbor because we didn't receive anything in the mail, so we were a little haphazardly putting together this letter. The photos I'm including, so most of them are from the laneway to show how limited the space is and that we really cannot afford to lose an inch. And then what I would like to...
picking up PowerPoint a bit. Just finish up that hearing. I just wanted to let you know.
Sorry, who's talking right now? Okay.
Sorry. So the 3 pictures are showing how narrow the laneway is. And then, of course, the front of the window that shows the front of the house, this is the one view right there. This is the one view where I can look into the park. We have big windows. I'm very grateful for our big windows, but every other window in the house looks onto basically the concrete buildings in the back of the lane and the back of Spadina Road. This is my very favorite spot in the house. As you can see the wall of the current house sticking out from part of my view. So whatever they would like to add on to the building in the front would take away the view of the green space that I have looking onto the start of Cedarville Park, especially not only the building, but then especially also that covered porch that they are talking about. I'm not saying anything about balconies sticking out in the back to give them added space. Again, I'm not saying anything about the height that they want to add to the building. I'm really concerned about losing width to have access to our carport and to lose the view of the green that we have out front. I thank you for your time.
Okay, Mr. Clay has a question.
Yeah, guys, I'm trying to understand. So there's a photo. Can we just go up to the one looking, that one there on the bottom?
Yes.
So that's your car on the right-hand side?
Yes, correct.
And your concern is that if your neighbor extends into the rear, that will limit your ability to get in and out?
Getting in, I think, might still work. Getting out, so the easement or whatever that's called, it goes that way. So we have to back out, and then there's a fence here. So we have to back out, and then before we hit the house, we turn to the middle and then back out. That's our only way. We cannot do a 3-point turn. There's no room. So whatever inch that the house will come more into the laneway or further out back will limit our options of, and I'm literally talking an inch or two, nothing more.
So do you have so that's a shared driveway, that's a right of way back there, right?
Correct.
So it extends. So I'm trying to figure out, like, they're not planning to build in the right of way.
No, but they are planning, so they are planning to add the covered porch in the back. And also, our carport sits a little, it backs up to Bilton Lane. Where they're planning to build a garage on Bilton Lane, the building on Spadina Road sticks out more onto Building Lane. So for a car to be able to turn in their newly built garage, their garage is going to have to come further back. And it's about a yard higher than the space, the cement you're looking at right now. So they're going to have to build steps at the entrance of their garage, which will further impede our turning corner. If you look at the map, the plans, the steps that would be created abutting the end of our carport.
Yeah. No, I get that. What I'm trying to figure out is, is there a proposal in some way, departing from their property line? And as a consequence going to impact you, or are they still on their property when even if they put the covered patio at the back, they're still on their property?
Yes, they're not coming on our property.
Yeah, they're not going into the right of way, they're not on your property.
They're not on our property. It's just in their statement, it says to keep the use of the shared easement. And they say for vehicular and passenger traffic, yes, for passenger traffic, it will obviously still be possible, but not for our car.
Okay, we'll ask him about that when he comes back.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions for the speaker? Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. We do have Stephen. Are you here?
My husband, Stephen?
No.
Oh.
Maybe he left. Okay.
Stephen is not on the list, right?
No, he registered to speak.
Okay, I do still have one more online, so we can try again after. Okay, so if I could have the final speaker that I do have on my list.
Hello, Jane or Eldon. You both have been unmuted.
Jane or Eldon Freeman. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Eldon?
Hi, is this?
Yes, that's me.
Hi, Eldon. Are you speaking on behalf of both Jane and yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
My concerns.
I need you to state your address and name for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Eldon Freeman, and I'm at 13 RELMAR Road.
Okay, go ahead.
So I am the one who gave my neighbor a copy of the letter. We were chatting one day in front, and she had never received them. We received 6 of the letters at our address for some strange reason, announcing the development. I'm a realtor in the city of Toronto. I've been a realtor for 35 years. When we bought on the street, it's a great street. We previously lived in the Annex neighborhood, and we bought because it was a diverse street. It had 4 or 5 fourplexes at the time, residential homes, and of course there's the apartments on Lonsdale that are very close by. And that's one of the things we loved about the street was the diversity, because it's quite different than the rest of Forest Hill. And and the city of Toronto, as you can see from my letter, has a really big problem with rentals and affordability. And this is a house that the developer, there's a house for sale 2 doors away that's on the market right now for $4.5 million. So this is a house that is not an affordable house. This is an over $3 to $4 million house finished if the market stays the same. And I guess my concern is mostly involved with the affordability issue and the fact that they're removing 4 affordable units from the City of Toronto's rental capacity and converting it into homes that are for, the top 5%. And I have a problem with that. I mean, I'm living on the street. You can see that I paid, not quite as much money as one of these houses, but at the same time, I'm also a realtor who sells in downtown Toronto, and I deal with renters and I deal with many, landlords, and I understand the problems that the city's facing. I also have 2 children who can't afford to live in Toronto anymore because the average price, although it's falling right now, is still, $1.2, $1.3 million. So that's my concern. Changing, when we bought, there were 5, I think, multiplexes on the street, and now there are 2. If this one goes, there'll be 2 remaining. And that's, reduce the housing stock by, I don't know, you figure it out, that's 3, that's 3 units, so that's 12 units that have gone in the 4 years or 5 years I've lived on the street. So that's my case. That's it. I'm opposed to anything that will take this out of the rental market. There's a lot of potential for converting those units. The building next door is a co-op. It has 4 very nice units. Or, just improving the units as tenants move out. I'm a landlord myself, and I have a very good understanding of that. So that's all I have to say. I don't know if you have any questions. I appreciate the time that I can speak today to you and express my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions for the speaker? Okay, there are no questions. Thank you very much. Okay, you said the person who registered, Stephen, are you here? No? Okay, let's go back to the agent then.
Hello, Tay, you've been unmuted.
Hi, how are you? Okay. Just to address some of the comments that were brought up, I'll deal with Mr. Freeman's comments about the rental. What we're proposing is permitted by the zoning bylaw in terms of the types of dwelling that's being proposed. It's a semi-detached dwelling. In terms of converting it from a rental unit to semi-detached, quite frankly, there's rental policies in place that protect the rental housing stock, and there's a certain number. If you have that certain number, you can't take it away, and that number happens to be 6 units, and in this particular case, it's 4. So it does not meet that criteria. So this can be severed or converted to semi-detached dwellings, and it's permitted as a right. In terms of the height and massing of this proposal, we're completely in compliance with the zoning bylaw in terms of height. There is an FSI variance on one of the units at 9A. That's just because at 1.03, whereas 1 is permitted. And that is a result of the fact that the rear of the property, it's a bit of an angle. So the property on the right where 9B is located is slightly larger. And that is why 9A has that variance for 1.03. In terms of the views that was mentioned at the front via the picture by Ms. Vermeulen, the porch that's being proposed out front, there is no variances related to that porch. That porch is permitted as a right. It's a permitted encroachment. The variance related to the front of the house relates to the balcony that's located on top of that permitted porch. If that balcony wasn't there, there wouldn't be any variances related to the front of the house whatsoever, because we do comply with the building setback in terms of the building itself, and that once again that porch is permitted as a right. And I say this respectfully, but as the committee is aware, in terms of views, there's really no rights to a view. This isn't a building. We're not proposing a building that exceeds the front yard setback requirements, or that's encroaching well beyond the front wall of the adjacent dwellings. And mind you, it is separated by the right of way or the driveway in between the properties. So I would submit to you that there is enough buffer between the properties to protect for any encroachments or infringements in terms of views. With regards to the rear parking situation, if you could just go to the site plan on my presentation slides or on the site plan, the stairs that Ms. Vermeulen was referring to for the garage is the property slopes from RELMAR Road upwards towards the rear laneway. And as a result of that, we need steps to enter into the garage. So you'll see that there's steps, and that step can be relocated, and we could relocate it to the middle of the property, to the left, to the bottom of the property where where the new property line would be. So that is flexible to ensure that they have the flexibility to move their cars in and out. And as a committee member noted, we're not encroaching into the right-of-way whatsoever. You'll also note that there is no side yard setbacks that is being proposed on this property. There's a building depth, and what's indicated in the green dashed there, green shaded area, that is the extent of the building depth variance. And the building itself, from the current situation, has been pushed forward. So we did this once again to ensure that we're lined up, we're consistent with the rear walls of the properties, and the covered porch or the covered deck is not a variance related to with regards to the length or depth, for that matter, or to coverage or to FSI, and doesn't require any setback variances at all as well. I think I've addressed all those comments, but if there's any questions of the committee, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. So you would be willing to relocate those steps, like maybe put them side. What about putting them side by side in the middle?
It's very flexible. I mean, we're not in the design phase, but those stairs could be moved anywhere on the front wall of that, along the wall of that garage.
Okay, I think it'd be great if you put them side by side, actually, in the middle, kind of. But anyway, so you can work with it. So that would then solve the problem of the car not being able to turn around, I think. Anyway, panel members, do you have any questions? Mr. Chang, any questions? No? Mr. Clay?
No, I just wanted to reiterate, I'm, you're light on rear yard landscaping. You seemed open to a green roof over the garage. And we may put a condition to that effect in if we choose to approve it. So it sounds like you're amenable to that. I think that would help us a little bit with your being light on the soft landscaping in the rear.
Sure, sir. We're amenable to it.
Through you, Madam Chair, Engineering Construction Services has submitted their comments. They're requesting 0.98 meter rear public lane widening.
Have you seen the engineering comments?
Yes, ma'am.
And
we have no problems with that.
You can accommodate them?
Yes, because the garage is set back a meter from the lot line, from the current lot line.
Okay, so you can meet the 0.98 meter wide strip.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions, panel members?
Is that a transportation or is that engineering?
It's engineering. It's the fourth condition.
Oh.
See it?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions, then let's take it into committee. Hang on. Whose turn is it? Aaron? Oh, it's yours. It's Larry's.
Well, there you go.
Larry's? Okay. I was just trying to see what kind of green roof we should recommend, but...
I always leave it open. Thank you for coming in today and expressing your concerns. I think this application, and the loss of rental, I understand that is an issue, but I think as the agent pointed out, this conversion would fall under the city's requirements. And there are other new semis that have been constructed on that road. And so it seems like a prevailing pattern on the street and in the area. The variances that are before us, quite frankly, are really quite minor for a severance and putting semi on the lot. I don't really have any issues with them. I was initially concerned about the rear landscaping. But, I think we've got a bit of a solution to that. The depth is only about half a meter beyond what's permitted. The FSI is not unreasonable for the area. So I frankly think this is a reasonable proposal, given the circumstances and given the context of where this is located relative to some of the neighborhoods surrounding it. So I don't think it's out of character at all. I do think that we should put a condition in for a green roof. Aaron, I don't know how specific we get in on that, whether we can just leave it as they will put a green roof on the garage. I think that's probably sufficient for our purposes. What do you think? Yeah, I don't think you need to be any more definitive than that.
Sometimes you can reference it back to the Toronto Green Development Standard, but I think maybe we're overkilling. So I think what you said makes sense. We won't limit them, but just mention it.
Yeah, so I'll move approval of this application subject to the engineering conditions for Part A, Forestry 1 and 2, for Part B, Forestry number 1, and the condition that the garage roof be made a green roof. Do we need to put a condition about the steps to relocate them? Yeah?
I would like to see a condition to relocate the steps.
Okay.
I mean, my preference would be to the middle, but certainly away from the sides. So I don't know how we word that, but.
I think just to relocate them away from whichever property line that is.
Might make sense to do it for both sides,
Yes.
right? So to relocate the porch/access steps to the garages away.
Porch?
Well, doesn't it have a little porch, I think, unless I misread the plan? It says it's got a tiny little, it's more like a little landing than anything, but it said porch on it, I think.
Oh, I just thought it was stairs, okay.
I don't know, I think it's both, but Sabrina, any ideas?
It's a landing.
It's a landing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. It's a landing, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Building code requires you to have a landing.
So while we got you.
So we'll come out of committee.
Come out of committee then, yeah, because.
Sorry.
So,
I was talking to myself.
Yeah, so want to put a condition in, but maybe you can suggest some wording. Want to move it away on both sides from the property lines.
So specifically, we're talking about more. The biggest concern is 9B. So that would be the south lot line.
Yeah.
To be the proposed stairs leading into the garage be moved away from the south lot line. I don't even to the middle of the garage, middle to the north lot line.
That sounds.
That's
fine. The other side isn't as much of an issue, right?
Yeah, but it would look more balanced if they were side by side, but that's just me.
For you, Madam Chair, it could just be shall not abut the south side lot line.
Right.
Yeah, excellent.
There you go.
And then,
Brilliant.
and then 9A will say north.
Okay.
Do you want the other?
Yeah, I think they
other
should,
side?
I think just for safety, just pull them both away, then.
Okay.
Just covers both.
So that,
So with
I think
the
that's
wording
it. Oh, and
suggested-
I did want, I know we didn't talk about, but I did want, there is a second-story balcony, right? So I think we should screen those on the sides. So there is overlook issues there. So I would say,
Running out of room here.
I know, right?
All right.
On the north and south sides of the second-story balconies should have privacy screening.
Okay.
And through you, Madam Chair, engineering construction services have conditions for the consent as well as for the minor variance. So we would be including the conditions for both.
So do we need to just do standard consent conditions?
So we'll do
as
standard
well as
consent
the engineering?
conditions as well as the conditions imposed by engineering construction services for the consent and the 2 minor variances.
Right.
Because it talks about the 2%
Yeah.
positive slope.
Okay.
But that would just, if we just include the report, it covers everything, right? The
Sure.
engineering
Yes.
report?
I just want to make that clear.
Yep, great. Okay, so All right,
Don't ask
we're
me to
back,
restate that.
we're back in committee. I will try to restate it. Okay, so on 9A, forestry condition 1 and 2, 9B, forestry 1, engineering, August 27, report all conditions, including the consent conditions in there, plus standard consent conditions. We want a condition for north and south side of the second floor balcony privacy screening, condition for green roof on the garage, and a condition that, okay, how did you word that again, Sabrina, please, for the stairs?
Yes, so the porch landing and stairs will not be, shall be constructed not abutting the south and north lot lines. And then for 9A, urban forestry is 1 and 3, not
Yeah.
1 and 2.
Did I say 2? Sorry.
Pardon me, I said 2.
Oh,
I have it written down as 2.
I have 3 written down, but
That's my mistake.
I don't know if I said,
I'm just going to double check it.
I think I said 3, but I may.
It's 1
I
and
said
3.
2, but I
So for 9A is 1 and 3,
Yeah.
and for 9B is
Is
1.
1.
But we have it, staff has it.
Yeah, I think I said 3, but who knows? You can check back if you want. All right, so that motion is moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Chang. All in favor? Okay, that carries.
so that helps your access issue. But that's what we've decided on.
Okay. Perhaps you can speak to staff, because there was something about a setback from the laneway anyway that may address your concern, I'm not sure. But we can't talk to you anymore now, sorry. Okay, item number 28 is 185 Gerrard Street East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a copy of the minutes from the August 30th public hearing. We have email correspondence from Planning, Heritage Planning, and they have condition. Forestry is asking for conditions 2 and 3. And Transportation doesn't have any concerns. Opposition from number 280, Sherburne Street. I am not showing, hold on, I have 2 speakers listed here. I'm not sure, are you the agent or are you opposition speaker?
No, I am Daniel Karpinski. I am an architect and,
Okay.
and applicant.
Okay, grab a seat then, and do you have the speakers?
To you, Madam Chair, no, I do not. One left the meeting, the other I could not reach.
Okay, is there anybody here that wants to speak on 185 Gerrard Street East? Yeah? Are you Lauren Goldman by any chance? Okay, I have you. And no, so just yourself. Okay, so can you do a presentation, please? No more than 5 minutes then?
Okay. Madam Chair, the committee, as I said, I am an architect and I'm representing the owner of 185 Gerrard Street. 185 Gerrard Street was the empty lot for 14 years in the city like Toronto, and discussing with or working together with planning and heritage, we put together this proposal for 28 micro units, mostly for students, having in mind students, no cars, only bikes. We are trying to propose the green roof over the whole property. We have the soft landscaping at the front, at the back. I think the best explanation what it is right now will be a quotation from the report, the heritage report, who is saying that our proposal conserves the cultural heritage value and heritage attributes to the district and adjacent contributing properties. The proposal has been designed to be compatible with the scale, height, massing, form, materiality, setbacks, and fenestration pattern of the adjacent contributing heritage properties. I think that this is absolutely amazing description of what we are trying to do. I would like to say that we are also thinking about using this project for some other for some other issues. We believe that variances are minor and it is along with the general planning. We would like to, maybe this is just an additional information. We are talking to George Brown College to use their staff for this project as a presentation project for wood and sustainability. We also talked to Spaces by Rohan, thinking about the potential of this building to be turned not into just rentable units for students, but also maybe something like co-housing to keep the people who are going to live there for a longer time. We also thinking that, that our neighbor, Misve Big, this is called their Aboriginal Training Center, in which I was teaching for a moment, architectural drafting, can also contribute to the construction of this building by allowing their students to work on this building as a construction crew. I would like to also add that I understand that we have 2 people in opposition. I was talking to the first one, to Lorne. Lorne, I think, is in BC and couldn't reach us. And I understand his concerns, and I assure him that whatever agreement with the owner of 185 he has to move garbage through this space, that will be kept for him. And I also send an email to another person in opposition saying that we don't have anything to do with the lane at the back of the house. We don't have cars. Those cars wouldn't in any way contribute to the traffic in the lane. And that's practically it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, can you hold your questions till after we hear from the opposition? Okay, Mr. McDermott, did I pronounce that right? If you can swap seats.
Absolutely.
My name is Archie McDermott. I live at 280 Sherburne Street, and there's a laneway that runs just on the west side of Sherburne Street, which provides access for parking for people living on Sherburne Street and people living on Pembroke. And that laneway takes a sharp 90-degree blind turn right where this proposal for this development is situated. And in the 16 years I've lived at this area, it's always been challenging to navigate the laneway and to deal with vehicles that are illegally parked in the laneway, to get in and out, to go about day-to-day living. In the last year, there's been significant proposed change that is going to impact this little laneway. You may be familiar with the proposal for 298 Sherburne Street, which is originally at the first public hearing, it was a 10-story student housing. And now I understand, although I don't know the details, they've acquired 300 Sherburne Street, and they're going to enlarge that development even further. That will place demands on this laneway because it's right where that right turn is on the laneway. Now we have another proposal for 28 units going in. And while I can accept that they're micro units and these people presumably won't have cars, day-to-day living requires services to that building, requires people to move in and out of that building, and the only way that they can do it is through the laneway. It's not practical to do it from Gerrard Street because you have the bicycle path, you've got a separation between the bicycle path and the parking and the traffic. So it's going to put pressure on the laneway. And we're going to create a situation with these developments that it's just going to be very impractical for people to access the laneway to get in and out of their parking. And we need to consider, you know, how everybody that shares that laneway is going to continue to function and use the laneway on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not going to complain about the building and how many people. I'm just asking a very, very practical question. What consideration is the city giving in terms of the ability of this tiny little laneway to provide all of these services that are going to be demanded of it at this proposed development, as well as the one that's going to go in at 298 Sherbourne? It's going to, as I say, I think overtax this significantly. The speaker spoke about his neighbor and the rest of it. Well, his neighbor is a big problem in terms of blocking that laneway. And I noticed it today on my way over here. Again, traffic unloading in the laneway, completely blocking it. You couldn't get around it whatsoever. So my concern is, you know, have we really thought about what does this mean on a day-to-day basis? Is there a sufficient provision in the footprint of this proposal to make sure that they're not infringing on the laneway? Because how are you supposed to make a blind right turn if they're going to start infringing because, you know, they're moving people in, moving people out, or there's some service vehicle coming to tend to the building? So that is my concern that I want you to give some consideration to. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Very valid concern. Panel members, any questions for the speaker?
Is it a one-way laneway, or do vehicles go both ways?
It's both ways. And it used to be there was a section of the laneway that connected to Pembroke, which has been blocked off.
I
So you may see it as there's a laneway running from Sherbourne to Pembroke right at the top there.
Yeah.
But it's blocked. It's blocked right at where the right turn is coming up the laneway.
Is that private property? Do you know? Like, why is there a fence across it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Could it,
Wouldn't expect you to.
It was there when I moved in, so it's been there for 16 years.
Interesting.
possibly it was blocked, I'm guessing, is because perhaps people were using it as a shortcut to bypass Gerrard, especially now, like, I'm on Gerrard fairly frequently. It's pretty jam-packed all the time.
It looks like a private fence.
Maybe you
I
need to
don't know-
consider
I don't know,
reopening
but
it.
Maybe.
Take your
But any-
car and run right through it.
Yeah.
It's,
Look, your concerns are valid, and I'll have, the agent come back and address it. We as a committee don't have jurisdiction over the laneway. We only look at the variances. I believe transportation controls the laneway. Maybe it's worth making a phone call through 311 and get somebody from transportation to speak to you and see if there's any way to control laneway blockages, because we can't address that as a committee here.
But the size of these units, I mean, the demands that you're going to put on the laneway, is that not something that you can?
No, this committee strictly looks at the planning tests and whether it meets the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaws, fits within the character of the neighborhood, et cetera. That's what this committee has to look at. Transportation, the other departments, and in this case, transportation, if they had concerns with the laneways, they would give us reports. Usually it's got to do with setbacks from the laneway. I don't think I've ever seen a report that speaks to traffic on a laneway from transportation. But listen, I think you have a valid concern, especially downtown. I would really suggest you give them a call and, see what kind of feedback you get from them.
Because you want a livable city, and these buildings require access, and vehicle access. So we just can't turn a blind eye to that.
No, I think you have a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Weird that there's a fence across it.
Okay, Mr. Karpinski, if you could speak to the issue raised.
Absolutely. as you said, they are valid concerns. The reason why we pick up 28 units is because we don't need to provide any loading dock. We are believing that people who are gonna rent the units in this building can move from the front. Our garbage will be moved to the front, not at the back. Bikes are welcome from the front to the little bikes garage or basement. So I truly believe that this building wouldn't have a big impact on the lane at the back. How you moved into such building, I really don't know, but I truly believe that with this parking, municipal parking in front of the building, that could be done from the street, not from the lane.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions? There's no lay-by, I mean, there's parking in front of the building, right? And don't bikes travel along there a lot also, I think?
Actually, there is the bike lane and there is the parking there, right? And so I understand, yes, if there's a moving truck, that's probably, it will be a problem to park for a long time. But I truly believe that people who are using micro units are really backpackers rather than, you know, truckers.
How many square feet are these units?
Micro unit is defined as 140 square feet of the living space plus closet plus bathroom. So our are starting from 180 of this livable space to 240. They are still micro units, but they are livable units. And in case that maybe that will be turned into co-housing one day, we can combine some of them into an apartment. That was the idea.
Okay, are there any other?
So do you have an affiliation with, do you mention George Brown, I thought I heard, or Ryerson? Do you have an affiliation with those guys? Or?
I used to teach at
No, but just in terms of the students using it, is there some sort of relationship between your building and?
Yes, I discussed with the director of George Brown College,
right,
the potential use of this building as a student project, and as a project that will be a display of certain issues that George Brown College is working right now.
Right, but it's not like a student residence per se.
No, absolutely not. They have
it's a private building.
Yes.
Which students may use.
Yes, absolutely. It's not like a George Brown College housing for students. No.
Okay.
It's just a project for really to deal with that, you know, like a presentational issue.
Okay, thanks.
Aaron, did you have any questions? No?
No, just looking at the, when you mentioned about micro units, I'm just checking the total number of units that this property can sustain. And then thinking about what the neighbor said, because there's always a catch here, because you would like to have more units and be compact as much as possible, but at the same time, you're also adding a lot of additional occupants on the load of the public infrastructure. So, yeah, I'm just checking it myself. We can discuss further later on.
Okay, no other questions, Mr. Clay?
Good.
All right, let's take it into committee then. It's Aaron's turn, I think. Yeah. You're up, Aaron.
I would love to support this application. I think it's a very interesting and meaningful project, but the density is very high. And the variances is quite interesting, particularly on the landscape part. So do you have any suggestion about that, Larry? Do you think a green roof would help in this case?
They've got a green roof. They have a green roof already built in, yeah.
Right. So that green roof they propose be sufficient to compensate the loss on item number 7.
Yeah, I think the trade-off is really, as you say, is, you know, a lot of additional rental accommodation, a lot of different density. They don't have much on the ground floor in terms of landscaping, but they do have green roofs, which I think mitigates that a little bit.
Right. That's great. So I think I have no problem to support the application, but I do want the application to be tied to the plans to make sure the green roof is going to be built accordingly. And I don't know if the heritage response is part of the condition. I believe it will have to be.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. The report is in the deferred package.
Oh, the transportation report.
No, heritage.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the different, heritage.
So they said that their comment from August 23rd, 2023 still stands.
Right. So the heritage report will be a condition of this approval.
That's correct.
Also tied to the plan, so 2 conditions.
And forestry?
Forestry, 2 and 3.
Oh, forestry.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, sorry.
Actually, Aaron,
That's
can I just come out of committee for 1 second? Why, you're like, there's a bicycle route. How come you can't provide any bicycle spaces anywhere?
No, that was a mistake. Probably in the first application, we talked to the transportation, and I think that they have the report saying that everything is fine. I'm providing 31 bike.
There's variance 9, right? Am I looking at the wrong thing here? No, 9. Yeah, you have a variance for no bicycle spaces.
Right, but as I said, you know, we discussed that with the transportation, and I sent an email counting all of them on the ground and in the basement, and it's like 60 places for bikes, which we need only 1.1 per year.
So are you deleting this variance then?
Sorry?
Do you need to delete this variance? You don't need it, right?
I don't need this, yes.
So can you then officially delete it now?
If I can say that, please delete this.
Yeah, you can.
Great, so I am
Great,
asking, please delete this variance.
Through you, Madam Chair, are you certain? This is a question to the applicant. Are you certain that you don't need this variance? Because you don't want to be in a position where you have to submit a brand-new application because this variance was incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1.1 bicycle parking spaces for each dwelling unit and allocated as 0.9 long-term bicycle parking spaces per dwelling unit and 0.2 short-term bicycle parking spaces per unit.
Right.
Dwelling unit. So as long as you can comply with that zoning regulation, then yes,
I think
you can delete it. But if you can't, just be mindful that you would need a new application.
Actually, I am complying from the very beginning. It is on the plan, and it's just a formality. I really don't know what is better for this application, to remove it or to keep it. I really appreciate your comment.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, I have to stay neutral, obviously, but there was a zoning review that was done, and this is what the zoning examiner determined. So
the zoning examiner saw the plans that are before us.
Right.
Okay, and they determined, so maybe, it's not my decision either, but maybe you need to err on the side of caution, but I don't know what to say.
Maybe we should keep it as it is. You know, I have a correspondence last week with the zoning consultant or zoning reviewer who was asking the same question. Do I have 1.1 bikes per unit? And I said yes, even more than that.
I do note, Chair, that in the basement floor plan, there is bike storage noted. And if Aaron's suggestion to tie it to plans would ensure that there would be bike storage facility on site.
Okay, so leave it in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll leave, yeah, okay, so tied to plans. Okay, Aaron, so there's transportation, or sorry, forestry 1 and 2, heritage report, and then tied to plans. Is that everything? Did you want to add any other conditions or? No? Okay, so Aaron, are you okay then, the motion? Can Aaron not hear me again?
Aaron, are you able to hear us from the committee room?
No. No,
We lost Wi-Fi? Okay, can we get it started?
No, I can tell he can't hear us because he's like.
You think he'd wonder what was
Going on.
It's been like the whole day like
You guys got
this.
to pay your bills.
That's right. Who's the provider?
Pay your Rogers bills.
Yeah.
Aaron, are you able to hear us now?
Nope. I can see his face.
Hi, Aaron, are you able to hear us now?
Oh, I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so Aaron, what I was saying when you couldn't hear anything is the motion then, going to leave in the bicycle variance, but you're tying it to plans, as Mr. Clay pointed out. That shows the bicycle spots in the basement. So it's a moot point if they're all there anyway. And then forestry 1 and 2 and the heritage report. So that would be your motion still? To approve. Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Clay?
Thank you so much.
Mr. Clay seconds. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously with those conditions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. All right, final item is item number 29, 73 Melville Road, or Avenue rather. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a copy of the minutes from the August 30th public hearing, as well as the materials submitted at that time. We have redline public hearing notice. We have a staff report from development planning, transportation services. They have a condition. We have significant amount of opposition from residents on Melville, Yarmouth, Pendrith, DuPont. Let's see here. We have from 1220 Shepherd Avenue East, Sigmund Sudak and Associates. We have we have more that came in last night, 4 of them from 96, 138, 118 Yarmouth, and 71 Melville. And presentation materials in opposition from 71 Melville. We have 3 opposition speakers listed. Now, I believe, are you in opposition? Okay, can I just get your name? Are you Terry? Okay. And you, just you? Okay, lucky you. And do you have the other 2 online?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thanks. Okay, do we have the agent on the line?
Hello, Michael, you have been unmuted.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, hi. Can you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Michael Cruz from TAC Design, and I'm acting as the agent for the owners at 73 Melville.
Okay, and you're speaking on behalf of the owner?
Yes, I am.
All right, I've got 1 opposition speaker here, 2 on the phone. So I need you to do presentation, please, no more than 5 minutes. And before you start, any material you need us to put on the screen?
No, I don't think so. I believe the committee's had a chance to review the materials.
Okay, go ahead.
Since the application that was originally submitted to the committee for the previous hearing on August 29th, 2023, we and our clients have reduced the size of the proposed house and the laneway suite. The house has been reduced in length, width, and in height, and the front basement entry has been removed. The laneway suite has been reduced in height, and the below-grade portion of the garage has been removed. This has all been outlined in the variance summary we submitted to the committee. So to be brief, 2 previous variances have been removed, and most of the remaining variances have been reduced. The new building remains within the allowable height. The solid wall height has been reduced by 2 feet. To note, the examiner measured the top of the roof versus the more common top of the wall. To measure the top of wall, this variance would be 9.9 meters. The FSI has been reduced by 150 square feet to an FSI of 1.09. The front encroachment is now in line with the existing porch. The front yard landscape open space has been increased by 33%, and now will be 14% more than the existing condition. The overall height of the existing house has been reduced. The overall length of the existing house has been reduced by 3 feet, and as such, the separation between the laneway suite and the house has been increased by 3 feet. The height of the laneway suite has been reduced by 2 feet, thus reducing the impact on the angular plane. The owner has taken the neighbors' comments into consideration and have taken substantive measures to address these and their concerns. We believe the revised proposal before you has responded to many, if not all, the neighbors' concerns. Also, given the relatively small lot, the new home remains modest and is compatible with the new builds in the neighborhood, as well as some of the existing older homes as highlighted by the submitted neighborhood precedent photos. Also of note, the majority of the new build will be built on existing foundations. We believe the requested variances for the home are minor. The proposed new build remains in keeping with the fabric of the neighborhood, and it offers densification and provides the addition of a new dwelling unit. Given these attributes, 73 Melville falls within the general intent of the city's zoning and bylaws and that of the official plan. Thank you.
Okay, panel members, any questions before we go to the speakers? Okay, thanks. We'll have you back after we hear from the speakers.
Through you, Madam Chair, as part of the package, there is the red line public hearing notice.
Yeah, I've been looking at that, and it kind of...
And I think the applicant has to go through each of the variances to determine or to tell us what's being kept, what's being removed, and what's being revised.
Okay. Are you revising anything that pertains to the last notice that went out, or were you just showing changes from before?
No, just indicating that the changes that were made by this applicant relative to the previous application.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I was sort of scanning through some of it. So you are, like all these 11 variances before us for the most recent notice that was mailed out is in fact what you are still looking for?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, thanks. Okay, so can I have, well, let's start with you. Oh, sure. Okay. Anybody in particular? Stelios? Okay. All right, sure.
Hello, Stelios, you have been unmuted.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
My name is Stelios Jason Aslanidis. I live at the house directly next door to the east of the applicant, 71 Melville Avenue. Firstly, thank you to the committee for reading our letters and taking the time today to listen to us as well. My first concern is regarding the very large third floor terrace. The requested variance pushes the third floor viewing platform substantially closer to the lot line, creating a condition that further imposes on the neighbor's privacy. I know that the committee often recommends a privacy screen of 1.5 meters high, but the proposed wall around the viewing platform offers privacy to the applicant, but does not provide privacy or alleviate the concerns of the impacted neighbors. This is because of the proposed setback of 0.27 meters, where the bylaw requires a setback of 0.9 meters. So 0.27 meters is 10 inches, an 11-foot deep terrace off a living room 10 inches away from a neighbor's house. No privacy screen could really protect from the sound or smells coming from the terrace. It's also just another large wall for both neighbors to look at. In that same vein, the maximum permitted height of all side exterior main walls is 8.5 meters. The applicant's reference to their conformation with the overall allowable height is misleading and of no relevance to the proposed variance. The side exterior wall height is the visible element that is not consistent with the bylaws, and it overwhelms the immediate neighbors. With the proposed addition to the second and third floors, this height is further exaggerated at the rear of the property, creating significant additional shading, impeding sight lines, and negatively impacting the neighbors' ability to enjoy their properties and setting an undesirable precedent for the neighborhood. Increasing the side exterior wall to height to 10.2 meters is not minor in nature. The proposed FSI of 1.09 is nearly 40% above the allowable FSI, and it includes a substantial increase to the footprint. The proposed development is not modest by any standard. It is not in keeping with the scale of the neighborhood. Regarding the front yard, as the applicant is not maintaining or updating the existing structure, which conforms with the scale of the neighborhood, I don't feel that the proposed encroachment on the front yard setback is in line with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The proposed platform would be reasonable if it was located on the west side of the property and the current location of the stairs was maintained, keeping them in line with the adjacent neighbor's front platform and steps. The proposed location of the platform and stairs on the east side of the property is adjacent to my property, which has a substantial setback. Regarding the laneway suite, the required setbacks and angular plane for a two-story laneway suite were developed through an extensive review and consultation process in order to minimize the impact and shading on the subject site and adjacent properties. The proposed setback encroaches substantially and does not conform to the angular plane. The applicant has suggested that these variances are required in order to make a desirable livable suite, but fail to acknowledge the significantly negative impact on the desirability and livability of neighboring properties. Furthermore, there are numerous examples of desirable and livable laneways across our city that successfully conform to all laneway bylaws, including photos that the agent himself submitted, which include laneway suites that conform to the bylaws and did not require variances. The encroachment of the roof eaves on the rear yard setback is substantial, and as the proposed building does not conform to the angular plane, which will lower the height of the eaves by 2 meters to the bottom of the angular plane. This variance must be considered in conjunction with variance number 9. The applicant has provided misleading commentary around the minor nature of the proposed encroachment and does not represent the additional height and the relative impacts to the neighboring properties. I believe the committee should not consider the existing structures when evaluating this application. The legal status of that structure, whether illegal or legal non-conforming, is irrelevant. The applicant submitted a document containing photos of structures in the vicinity of the proposed development. These images fail to provide any relevant analysis or quantitative measurement that confirm their equivalency to the proposed variances. This document should be ignored. Finally, in the event that the committee grants the applicant any of the proposed variances, I request the addition of a clause that ties each variance directly to the architectural plans submitted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Panel members, any questions for the speaker? Okay. Thanks very much. Yep, your turn, Tari.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, my name is Terry Shear. I live at 71 Melville, but I'm speaking today as a representative of the Christie Pitts Residents Association on behalf of the resident members. I appreciate the committee taking the time today to listen to our concerns and objections. We do in general feel that this updated proposal is a performative attempt at acting like a revision has occurred. And so I'm going to be speaking to some of the major objections raised by the Residents Association. We want to emphasize that we are in no way a NIMBY group. In fact, a lot of our discussion has been around building more housing in the neighborhood, and we support development and growth. We have also to protect the enjoyment of those living in the neighborhood already, and precedent set can have a dangerous impact. I myself have only lived in this neighborhood for 4 years. I initially bought on Melville because it's a one-way street. There's very few houses, only numbered 2 through 114, running from Christie to just Shaw, so it's only 350 meters long. It's a narrow roadway that can't fit 2 cars at once, tree-lined with big open porches on every house. It's a beautiful mix of older homes and newer builds that keeps with that welcoming, soft streetscape. If you can pull up some of my documents in the presentation materials in opposition, you can pull up the south side streetscape photos that I took, just to give you an idea of what it looks like on the south side of Melville. Although our house lot is small and our backyard is quite small as well, because of the nature of the design of the street, we could still see the trees, the sky. We have our south-facing windows provide sunlight and greenery inside of our space, which helps open up that otherwise close-together urban feel. This is a huge reason that people pick the Christie Pitts neighborhood to live, that welcoming green space. By their own admission multiple times, the agent and the applicant refer to 73 Melville as one of the smallest lots in the neighborhood. The Residents Association agrees with this fact. The lot size is smaller compared to some in the neighborhood, reducing your ability to build a similar sized house compared to other lots. The lot is just too small for these requests that are being made. The backyards specifically on the south side of Melville are quite small, and since the existing ancillary buildings have been there for decades, they are quite close to the houses. There are ways to still develop and change the houses to modern, safe, and enjoyable living conditions. Here I will refer to another thing I submitted, one of the drawings submitted to me by a landscaped architect, where you can add a small second-story setback laneway suite to the existing ancillary building, one that respects both the neighbors as well as allows for a rental unit, which is clearly what the applicant is hoping for. Out of the 4 Christie Pitts Laneway Suite specialists that the Residents Association spoke to, not a single one removed the angular plane when drawing up ideal plans. And this was for multiple reasons. One is that the setbacks of the backyards is so much shorter than what the bylaw allows, and also because the distance between the houses does not allow for a safe emergency exit. Penetrating the angular plane in such a way as being proposed is just not neighbor-friendly in this scenario. While in adding their additional thoughts, the agent also added a comment that they are increasing the soft landscaping. However, when we get a chance to redo something in the past that wasn't done right, it's really best to improve it as much as we can. And with a suggested 2 dwellings, a laneway suite plus the main house, having almost no soft landscaping in the back is really concerning to the association. The original plans submitted were variances that were incredibly extreme, and so slight revisions here and there to those numbers, although on paper still reducing the numbers, is not bringing us to a reasonable reduction or a satisfactory variance of the bylaw. A final thought, the applicant has removed the car lift from the drawing submitted, but in fact, due to the below ground nature of the car lift, it never required a variance or an ask of the committee and could be reinstated after this meeting, regardless of what's decided here. In that way, if we don't get a deferral or a rejection, we would like to tie to the plans as amended. It is the Residents Association's feeling that these are not minor variances and this application is extreme, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, thanks a lot. Can I have the final speaker?
Hello?
Hi, Daniel?
Yeah.
If you could state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes to speak to the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. My name's Dan Rosen. I live at 75 Melville Avenue with my family, which is the property just to the west of the application. I really want to thank the committee for considering our written submission in objection to the application and offering the opportunity to speak to it today. I was hoping to be able to point to some of the photos in our written submission, if that's possible. We tried to frame that around the 4 criteria that are listed, what the committee uses to consider these variances in the written submission and speak further to those. So I think there's a lot of overlap for the rationale of why we would suggest that those criteria are not met. Not considering 11 variances minor, especially when they involve heights or sizes. Almost all of them have a significant percentage, significantly exceed the limits. So don't consider it minor. It doesn't seem to be in conformity with the official plan, but I especially wanted to speak to the criteria of the variances following or not following the general intent and purpose of the zoning code and bylaw, which I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of the details of that. But when you see the variances listed, it's clear how if the application was in conformity, that would solve all of the objections that I'll speak to. I see you're going through some of the submissions on the screen there.
I think it's... No, hang on. Those are Terry's. We're trying to find yours.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop the clock for a second here.
Thank you.
When did you send them in? Was it last minute, or did you send them in?
No, it was it was 5 days ago. Okay. I had submitted a PDF previously and then submitted an updated one, by the deadline, which I think was 5 days ago.
Okay.
It's Daniel Rosen and Jessica Haber.
We're all searching here, so because there's so many materials.
There it is. There it is. That was it.
Great. So I'm going to start the clock again. So go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. So sharing a lot of the objections, but really wanted to speak to the variances as they relate to my backyard here. And several variances that go together in their impact on our sunlight and view of the sky and privacy. So this is our backyard and back deck. You see the 1-story extension that's currently on that house. So that wall would now extend up to 3 stories. It would be 10.2 meters or slightly different because that would be the terrace, but that would be a huge wall looming over our back deck. And then if you scroll down to the next picture, so this shows that same extension there to the left of the picture beyond the privacy wall that I built. And the ancillary building as it currently exists. So that wall that you see to the left would go up 3 stories. The ancillary building would be 2 stories. You're supposed to have 7.5 meters in between the main building and a garage or an ancillary building if it's going to be above 4 meters. It's less than 6 meters of separation. The ancillary building is proposed to go significantly beyond the 4 meters. That's the current limit and that the variance requests. Not the separation. It doesn't respect the angular plane. That's also a significant variance. And you'd see how we would just have these, I hope you see, I intended to show how there would be these 2 looming walls or structures with very limited space in between them. So those, and really maxing out the floor space index proposed is 1.09, where the zoning code or bylaw calls for 0.6. And so I'm not, 0.6, I wasn't aware of that, not wedded to that, but it's nearly double here because they've, really maxed out in all dimensions. And even the ancillary building on the second story is proposed to be cantilevered so it comes even closer to the main house. And you'd see how much sky that would block out and our morning sun where we're really using this deck and table. So those are my main concerns. Wanted to say in response to the suggestion that this house is modest and compatible on a relatively small, but it's just that the lot is small. I want to make a similar point to the previous speaker in a different way that, you can see from the map that almost all of the lots here are roughly the same size, and none of the houses that are built have gone this high. People have added third-story additions, but done so in a way where they bump out an attic and have considered the neighbors. And we haven't had any follow-up from the applicant to discuss, what might be acceptable. There's 26 houses on our side of the street, on our block. None of them have a ancillary building that goes above 4 meters. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, any questions of the speaker? Seeing none. Okay, if I could have the agent back, Mr. Cruz.
Yes. Yes.
Can you speak to the issues raised? We'll set the clock at 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, there were a lot there, but I will do my best. The third floor terrace, it is not off of the living space. It's off what is a den, what could be a bedroom. It is only 8 feet in depth. It's not meant to be a big entertaining space. It's not associated to a kitchen or anything like that. We are in fact set back 3 feet back from 71 Melville, and 2 feet beyond the second story of 75. The roof eaves that were mentioned on the laneway suite, that encroachment, that's actually an encroachment on the laneway side. And that's just simply that we're adding a gutter on the laneway side of the dwelling so that the water is being shielded with the laneway. Speaking about the front open area, we have in fact increased the amount of landscaped area that, by 14% that is currently there. We've removed the front porch roof, which also opens up that front portion of the yard property. The laneway suite is modest. It is a 1-bedroom. You can see that the one bedroom is made as kind of as tight as possible to have a reasonable and desirable dwelling unit there. There's some mention about the access to the laneway suite. I believe that's all relative to what the code requires from the street. The number of variances was mentioned. 5 of the 11 variances are actually related to the laneway suite itself. There's also talk about the depth of the imposition of the home to the backyards, but in fact, the building depth does conform to the zoning bylaw. That's all I have to say.
All right, panel members, any questions? No questions? Okay, well, we'll take it into committee for a decision then. It's yours.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Okay then. I'll start. First of all, there's a lot of concern raised about this application. I think even more concern the second time around. We've seen more correspondence than we did the first time. I appreciate the applicant's efforts to reduce the impact of the proposal in coming back this second time. I will say that from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily have any issue with the main dwelling or the proposed laneway suite. I think what my problem is together they seem like a lot. you know, the distance, separation distance between the new expanded main dwelling is almost 2 meters shorter than the bylaw requires. It just seems to me, and I think people said this is one of the more narrow lots in the neighborhood, just seems to me that this is an overbuild relative to the size of the lot, relative to the community. I even think the main dwelling, the massing of the facade of the third story is, I've been up and down that street now several times, and there isn't really any building that has that kind of architectural design. Most of them are the traditional designs. In fact, I couldn't even find, I don't think, any that had this new modern design, which is becoming more prevalent, as we know, right across the street in most neighborhoods. But this street does seem to be characterized by a fairly uniform, traditional front facade. As I say, I think if the proposal for the main residence or the ancillary suite came forward independent, I might be more accommodating, but I find the combination of the two to be overbuilt. And even though the variances have been reduced, I still find them excessive, particularly separation distance and the compactness in the rear yard and the ensuing impact, particularly on the two adjacent neighbors. So that's my view.
Right, and I just want to add that, I mean, to the applicant, that most applications we have seen have a setback on the third floor, on the main building at the front, or when it is facing the backyard, there will be also a setback, which is what the plane is about. When you encroach to these setbacks, suddenly the massing and the overall impression to the neighborhood will change quite a bit. And that's how people feel that massive looking on the street. And seldomly these kind of applications will be accepted by neighbors because we were not used to this kind of development in a small streets. It's more likely on the main artery lanes with TDC bus routes, that kind of situation. So in a way, the massing is really not appropriate in this setting. And so it is very hard to justify that this is a minor variance. It's a very big shock to a typical way how we perceive a dwelling in a small street this way. So I think you should probably consider, we study the streetscape and see how you can shape the massing a little bit better so that it gives you a much nicer perspective, especially when you're at the street level. If you can generate some better images and shadow study so that it can convince the neighbors that the building is not that big. I think some minor changes will help, but at this stage it's too late to do that. So I would just have to agree with Larry that it is very difficult to approve it.
I agree with all the comments made. I think cumulative, there are too many variances for this project. There's a lack of landscaping. There's violation of the angular plane, which is supposed to protect, the setbacks and sort of the way it impacts the neighborhood. So I respect the fact that some changes were made. However, I can't support this application in its current form for all the reasons that all of us have stated. And, hopefully can go back to the drawing board and hopefully engage with the community a little bit more, especially the Ratepayers Association that, came down here today and has been waiting for hours to speak. I think it will go a long way. I mean, it's always good if you can work together, and you can probably come up with a much better project if you do so.
Chair, I'll move refusal of this application based on the discussion that we just had.
Okay, so Mr. Clay moves refusal of the application. Mr. Cheng, you second that? All in favor? Okay, the application's been refused. Thank you for coming down. Thanks for everybody for their input. it's my last meeting downtown, so thank
Chair,
you to all the staff.
before we sign off,
Yeah.
before we turn off YouTube, I think on behalf of all of us, I'd just like to, this is your last meeting with the Toronto and East York
Yeah.
Committee of Adjustment. You've chaired for the last 4 years, and previously in your first term, you chaired a lot there too. I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude and your thanks for a remarkable job. I mean, you have set the standard for how to chair these kinds of sessions, and you've been a great leader to all of us, and me particularly, and others, I'm sure, over these last ones. So I want to think on behalf of all of us, just to thank you very much for your service. We really appreciate you, and we certainly will miss you next term.
Well, thanks a lot, Larry, and everybody here. And the staff has been great. Members have been great, so thanks, everybody.
Nancy, it's been a true honor, honestly, a true honor to work with you. And we're going to miss you greatly.
Yeah, I'll really miss you guys. Who knows, maybe someday I'll be back. But
You'll be back.
It's been a great 8 years, and yeah, I'll miss all of you and the members and the staff. Everybody's been amazing, so to work with.
Thank you.
So on that note, you can adjourn us at what time?
It is 5:59.
5:59 is it's adjourned? Okay.
Computer says it's memorable.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, it's actually not, Nancy was telling me it's not actually her last day because you're